Hello and welcome back to the Elite Football Show. I don't even need to introduce myself today, guys. You know who I am. Obviously, you see my face every week. And you know who I've got with me here today is Rob. Rob, I want to be talking to you on better circumstances. I know we were meant to talk on Wednesday, weren't we? After the window.
Yeah.
What can we say? I mean, that was probably one of the hardest. That is the worst defeat I've ever seen in my life. That is the hardest thing I've ever had to watch. As I said to you off camera, I did switch it off after the fourth goal and then put it back on. Tell the listeners what you said to me just now about this sort of that perfect storm thing.
Yeah, I think every now and then in football, wherever you stand, wherever a team is in its development, you quite often see that eventually, if things go bad, it kind of all encompasses itself in a perfect storm. And what we saw for Manchester United here today in that first 45 minutes was everything that's bad about this team come to fruition, show itself in one great big fireball. And you can unpack it, you can look at certain things, and that's what I think we'll do today. We'll kind of look at stuff and see what went wrong, why it went wrong, where United stand, you know, how do they go forward, you know, what's next for Ole. We can look at all of those things. But I think more than anything, we kind of have to say that that was a disgraceful performance by Manchester United. You know, you can look at the manager's tactics, you can kind of pick apart the bones, but everyone on that football pitch wearing a United shirt needs to be held absolutely accountable for that performance. And it doesn't matter whether you're Ole in or Ole out. You know, this is what we get on social media all the time. And people say, oh, well, if you're Ole in, then he can't do no wrong. And if you're Ole out, then obviously he can't do any right. You have to judge it by what you see. And what we saw today was a complete disaster.
Yeah, well said. I'm just going to read out Kieran's comments. Is this the bottom or do we fall further? Honestly, I wish I could say this was rock bottom, but I think it gets worse. And I don't want to be doom and gloom. And look, I just want to step back, Rob, to how I was feeling in December of last season. I think that's important. And I was Ole out. And it wasn't because of what other people say, you know, about Jose. It was nothing to do with that. I looked at it objectively and I thought, we've got a manager here who I absolutely loved as a player. I adored him as a player. He gave United one of the greatest fans, the greatest ever memory that anyone could ever have in 99. But I've been banging this drum for a long time. And I said it today to a few people on a group chat that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if he wasn't a Man United legend, he would never have got the job. He wouldn't even been considered for the job. And at the end of the day, that's what people have to take into consideration when they're looking at Ole as a manager. They've got to think, looking at that track record, is there anything in his CV to suggest that he can take us where we need to be? Back in December, I was Ole out, and maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. Bruno came in, and United got top four, which was excellent. And at that stage, I thought, you know what? He deserves a window. He deserves one more opportunity to build his team. He hasn't really been backed. But what we saw today, Rob, there's no excuses. That side out there today beat Spurs last season in one of Jose's earliest games. And to go out there and to lose 6-1 like that, to me suggests it's a coaching problem. You looked at that defense. I mean, let's talk about selection first. The selection, I actually tweeted out, that's United's strongest 11. I think there's more than enough to win. I was very happy with it. I thought Eric Bailly's in the squad, brilliant. But that was a shambles. At the back, I don't care who you've got in defense. There's lesser managers out there with lesser players, and they have a more organized defensive line. That's a managerial problem, isn't it? That's a coaching problem.
Well, look, I don't want to sit on the fence, but it's a kind of yes or no answer, isn't it? You know, when you look at the mistakes that Manchester United made today, they were horrific. No tactic solved that. Yeah, I can remember United going through a similar thing years ago with Fergie, and it was the year before we signed Rio Ferdinand. And the reason why United broke the transfer record to sign Rio Ferdinand was that we were seeing mistakes like this every week, where the back four was just falling to pieces. This was a championship winning defence in times gone by, and suddenly they were just falling apart and making mistakes. And as soon as the confidence falls out the bottom of you, you're done. You're absolutely done. And the first goal today that we saw was probably the worst goal I've seen Manchester United concede in 30 years, 20 years, around that amount. That's how bad that first goal was. From the moment that Paul Pogba flicked the ball into the box, to Bailly missing it, to then Harry Maguire deciding that he should nod the ball back to De Gea, to then Luke Shaw getting stuck in no man's land and not knowing what to do, to Harry Maguire then knocking over his fullback and letting the ball be free to be smashed home from 6, 7, 8, 9 yards. it was a complete disaster. That's not on the manager. You can look at organisation until you're blue in the face. That's up to players to take the responsibility in that moment to do their jobs. And they didn't. And what we saw after that was we just saw a complete unraveling. Yeah. So players who maybe were on the edge of their confidence, rather than kind of standing up and saying, right, now we're up for a fight, let's get on with this, it all just fell to pieces. So, yep, you've got to hold the manager accountable. This is his team. There's no doubt about it. If you lose 6-1, a manager can't walk away scot-free. Absolutely not. The way I look at this, I think Ole got the job because he has been part of the club for a long time before. He went obviously back to Norway. And he had some acumen with that in the sense that he'd managed or he'd coached under Fergie. And the idea was to take United back to basics. And I think what we've seen in the last year is that that has worked. United had the record that proved that maybe the kind of Galactico route that they were on before Ole was working. But what we've seen today, I think, is more of a reflection of maybe, say, the current transfer window. When I've talked about this, I've always talked about it from a view of what the Glazers have tried to put out into the press as to what they're doing. It's not my opinion, it's their opinion. And their opinion is that they don't want to pay the prices. They've seen this kind of COVID discounts that they're interested in. And that's kind of the route that they've taken. What today has proved, and I wrote a piece this morning which said this, is that they completely got that strategy wrong. And they've got it wrong because you shouldn't get to transfer deadline day and not have the players that you need. You can get towards the end of the window, the week before, 2 weeks before, leave it a little bit late, play the game. But if you get to a game like this against Spurs, you haven't completed your business, and then you lose 6-1, questions are going to be asked.
Yeah, some fantastic points there. I'm just going to read out something that Phil Smith here. Hello, mate. Thanks for getting involved. Guys, get your comments in. Give it a like. Give it a retweet. Give it subscribe as well. Look, we've got some great content. I'll be talking to Rob again probably on Wednesday after the window, so we'll have a different chat. But Phil says here, Ollie, nice guy. Loved him as a player. But a club as big as United needs a super experienced manager. I would agree with that. And Kieran said here, any team that trusts their manager doesn't give up. What I saw today, Rob, was a team that lacked effort, lacked desire. What I saw, honestly, and I've said this and I've tweeted it out before, is that when Jose Mourinho was going into that final season where he wasn't backed as he wanted to be, the whole atmosphere was toxic. And I'm feeling the same thing. When Luke Shaw's coming out and saying, we need more players, even if players comes in, Luke Shaw loses his place. That suggests to me that it's not a happy camp. And that's not necessarily Ollie's fault. That's what we're saying from above, isn't it?
Yeah, morale's a funny thing, yeah. I don't think that morale is bad at Manchester United. From our conversations with players and with the people at the club, there isn't an issue in terms of the morale within the squad. What I think you saw today, and this is what Luke Shaw said after the game as well to kind of back up his previous comments, was that it's not good enough, this level. It's not, in terms of what they put out today, and that United need signings. He alluded to that. And that's something I think all fans think, even if you are maybe softer on the stance that United need players immediately, or whether you think it's Sancho or, they need a new centre-back, people have different opinions on positions. Everything I think we're all 100% sure of is that Manchester United need players, and that's what this squad needs to go to the next level. Now, what we're seeing is, I think, this kind of stagnation that happens with teams in maybe year 2 or 3 of their development. So with Mourinho's United, we saw this. He kind of hit a brick wall. He came second, and it felt like that was the ceiling. And it also felt like that the board lost faith in him in that transfer window. They didn't like his targets. They didn't like the way he wanted to spend money. And they left him out to dry. And obviously, it completely unraveled again. And that was the end of Mourinho by December. There is a real risk that we're seeing history repeat itself. So whether you want to blame Ole or not, ultimately for me, this is about the board. And this has always been about the board from day one and about strategies. And if you get away with it, you say you buy Sancho on the final day of the window, yeah, Manchester United win the transfer window. That's how it looks. But ultimately, if you don't have a director of football, we saw Ed Woodward sat up there today, didn't we? With his phone clicking away, obviously talking about the game or business or something or the other, maybe what he wants for dinner. Yeah. Ultimately, it stands on him. He is the guy that pushes the buttons. He's the guy, the connection between the board and the Glazers. So he has to take responsibility. Now, he's almost untouchable. But in this situation, he has to either stand by his manager, go and buy the players that the manager wants, listen to his manager, or sack his manager. And that's kind of where we stand today. Pochettino still hasn't got a job. This is where it is. Pochettino is Ed's guy. We've known this in the press. We've talked about it multiple times.
Talk about it more, Rob, because I was going to put out the short clip today. Me and Rob have spoken about this before. Rob, tell me exactly what Woodward's sort of views are on Pochettino, because I think this is very important for the fans to understand that there is this underlying, and I've said this before, that my view on the situation is Ollie's just keeping the warm seat for Poch. And you could see at Christmas, or it could be earlier, that Pochettino in some form will be a Man United man, will be the Man United manager. So tell me and the listeners a bit more about what Woodward's relationship or view of Pochettino is.
Okay, going all the way back to the end of Mourinho at that period. Now, obviously, when it kind of went wrong for Jose in that final season, and obviously he left in December, the feeling was, and the information that was kind of being fed out to us all the time, was that Manchester United wanted Pochettino. Yeah, that came from the centre of Manchester United, and obviously the centre of Manchester United is Ed Woodward. So we knew all along that Ed was a big fan of Poch. He'd said it privately to people multiple times behind the scenes. And for him, it was, how do I get Pochettino out of Tottenham Hotspur? So what do I do next? So he appointed an interim manager in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And the idea was that Ole obviously took the team into the end of the season, and that United were then in a better position to go to Tottenham and to trigger whatever his release was at that point. That didn't happen. Why? Because Manchester United went on an incredible run under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And United then decided that maybe he was the guy that they should stick with, because it didn't look like Pochettino was leaving Spurs anytime soon, unless it was for a king's ransom. Fast forward a little bit. Obviously, Ole's had his time now with the team, and obviously we've seen advancements and slipping backwards and in forwards and backwards and whatever. And now Pochettino hasn't got a job. So you don't have to be a brain, rocket scientist to kind of put it together and say, what is Ed Woodward thinking today at this moment? And for me, I do think that he would love to work with Pochettino. I think Pochettino is the man that he would like at United one day. I don't believe that Ole was keeping the seat warm. I don't think it really works like that. For me, you go by, every manager gets judged by the results that they put ahead of them. And today, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just lost 6-1. So if Ole can fix this, he'll get a short period to do that. If United now got 3 points from 9, it's a disastrous start. And the league table doesn't lie when it comes to these things. If we get 8 games in, 9 games in, 10 games in, Manchester United are 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, then I do believe we'll see the manager replaced. And that would be probably the right thing to do in those circumstances. However, if you don't give the manager the players that he needs to kind of take the team forward and build on a really good third place finish from last season, then what's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer supposed to do? So I think that's kind of where we stand. And it will be interesting to see if Pochettino is appointed at any other club in the time being, that kind of going forward in the next few weeks, or whether he will sit tight and maybe wait for his opportunity to take the hot seat at Old Trafford.
But that's the thing. It's for me, it was always, United never had a plan. When Jose went, they, like you said, okay, it was Pochettino, but they knew that if they wanted Pochettino to cost, 30 million, something ridiculous like that, the buyout of his contract. So United didn't want to go and pay that. So what I don't understand, I've been banging this drum since Ole got appointed. I think he did a fantastic job. You can't deny that he didn't do a great job in the beginning, but who through that all, it's classic United. There's no planning. Through that nostalgia, through that sentimentality, you saw what happened in PSG. They gave him the contract. Even at that time, I might have been one of the few, and I probably got blocked by a few people. I know that's probably why I got blocked by James Jackson. He's not in the comments today, but he's someone that watches this a lot, and it's because I just thought it was such a emotional decision. You didn't look at the bigger picture. Pochettino wanted the job as well, and Sir Alex obviously also said he should get the job. And there's a few comments here of people saying, why Poch? For example, Elvis is in. Thank you for your comment, mate. If we're going to sack Ollie, why Poch? Did Poch win anything? And that's the comment that infuriates me the most, because what Pochettino did, why do Tottenham have Jose Mourinho now? Because of all the work Pochettino did. Pochettino took them to that next level, so they're a regular Champions League club. People look at trophies, and I fully admit, yeah, Poch should have won something, but he could have won a League Cup or an FA Cup. But amount of times that they put out a weakened side, but he made Tottenham a team that would get beaten 6-1 by United. He took a team, developed youth, took them to the Champions League final. They became Champions League regulars. This is exactly the sort of manager that United should be looking at. Someone that can develop the youth, someone that can build the club. That's what they need. I maintain this, and I'm going to say this now, that if I was the board, and I'm sorry anyone in the comments who disagrees with this, but it's inexcusable. You cannot lose 6-1 and keep your job at a club the size of Man United. Would that happen at Real Madrid? Lopetegui got beaten pretty badly. He lost his job at Real. Would this happen at Barca? You have to go after losing in that manner. Now, if Pochettino comes in, people ask, will Poch be able to take United to the title? No, they won't. We know the issues are bigger. And this is the point. We know the issues are the board. But that team out there today, Pogba, £90 million player. Bruno, £50 million player. Van der Beek, £40 million on the bench. Martial's a £50 million player. Rashford, a top player. Greenwood, one of the best young prospects in the world. Maguire's an £80 million player. Bailly was 30. Shaw was 30. Wan-Bissaka, 50. De Gea, 20 million. That side, that is inexcusable, Rob. You cannot, that side, whatever you think, it won't win the title, but there's teams like Everton who are playing out their skin, who've got a lesser squad. There's teams like Newcastle that are playing better football than us. This is a real big problem, Rob. We cannot just sit here and think, oh, well, it's just the board. The way I see it, and I tweeted this out, the board are the problem and the reason why United aren't pushing for honours, top honours. But Oli and the coaching staff are the reasons why this team is not performing. They need to do their job, and at the end of the day, they didn't do that.
I look at it from a completely opposite angle. I disagree with that. And the reason why I disagree with that is for very simple reasons. This is a repetitive issue that we're seeing at Manchester United, and I even said this with Mourinho. When we got to the end of Mourinho, his football absolutely stank. Everything was wrong, and it was the end for him. He kind of travelled the road that he does at clubs where he kind of gets to year 3 and kind of trips up. We've seen that with Mourinho before. For me, we look at the coaching. Does Pochettino make this Manchester United team better tomorrow? No, not for me. I think Pochettino is a great coach. Why do I think he's a great coach? Well, I think when you kind of look at the order of managers in terms of all the way across Europe, you can maybe look at Nagelsmann or other up-and-coming young coaches. Pochettino's not exactly a young coach anymore. But for me, Pochettino was just behind Pep and Klopp when it came to the order in the Premier League. You could say Ancelotti now has come back and kind of takes number 3 spot again. But who takes the job? You sack Ole tomorrow. Say you didn't get Pochettino. Who do you give the job to? Where do you go? Who's available? You could go
Allegri and Poch, really, isn't it? Well, yeah, they're the two standout.
For me, Allegri plays absolutely backwards, slow, horrible football. It wouldn't suit Manchester United. It would be a disaster. So he might do all right for 2 years at United, and get a Champions League finish and all of that. Is that where United want to be? That's not where the fans want to be. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of, do you just sack a manager? I think Ole obviously needs the chance to fix this in the next few games. They're going away for the international break. That's you could say badly timed, but also I think when you've had a bad defeat, it's good to get rid of the players for a week.
For me, Rob, this is a perfect time to sack. If you're going to sack anyone, this is an international break. This one question.
Would you have sacked him 24 hours ago?
Honestly,
would you have sacked him 24 hours ago? Just as a choice?
No, obviously not. No, exactly. Obviously not.
If you lose 6-1, you're right. That's a really, black mark on your record. You lose 6-1. I remember United losing 6-2 under Fergie at Southampton. I was there. I remember it all. Yeah, but that's not what this is about. This is not about that. It's about the kind of bigger picture. So you can't sack the board. So where do you go from it? So if this carries on, then Ole deserves to be sacked. There's no doubt about it. If we see that the club crashes now in the Premier League, and like I said, out of the top 10, out of the Champions League places, and you see that all of that confidence is drained away, today the manager, he'll be hurting as much as any fan. Yeah, he'll be hurting.
Yeah, 100%.
He loves this club like we do. But ultimately, these players have got to play for him. And this is always the thing, isn't it? You can't replace a whole squad of players, but you can replace a manager. Now, if you could bring Pochettino in and that's ready to and good to go, you might see United execute a deal like that a lot quicker than, say, they executed a deal for, say, Jadon Sancho at over 100 million. This is where the crux, the problem is. United should have got Sancho done because he was the player that they needed at that point.
That's a big.
They should have looked at it and gone when they gambled on Bailly. Now I've all talked about Bailly a lot in the last 2 years, and we've got to a point where we've gone. Lindelof is so bad, we've got to give Bailly a go. But I've written so many things saying that Bailly isn't fit enough. It's a problem. It happens all the time. He gets injured all the time, and technically, he is a nightmare. Yeah, so we saw it today with that goal that he gave away where he plays the ball across the box. What is that all about? I don't think Mengi does that. I don't think Tuanzebe does that, and they're children, So this is one of your senior players who's there, who's supposedly a 30 million centre-back and supposedly really good. And like physically, he did okay today. He got, made 2 or 3 blocks, and that's great. But you need footballers. You need both. Yeah. You need someone who can do those things. Bailly isn't the answer, not long-term. Lindelof's laughing today, isn't he? He sat there thinking, I'm so glad I wasn't part of that because he walks straight back in the team now for the next game. And he's not good enough either. So there's loads of things that you can unpack, not just from the performance, but really from the last 2 or 3 months, maybe from the lockdown period where we saw United run out of steam at the end of the season, didn't we? In the Europa League, they just didn't have enough players. They looked knackered. They fell out of that competition right at the end and obviously came third, and that was good. But they're in a really, really difficult predicament now. And it comes down to the quality of your squad. Like we can talk now about who's coming in. We know Cavani's coming. That's done. That'll be done tomorrow. And we believe
so
that
lucky, Rob. Huh? We are so lucky that Cavani's coming in because Martial's now probably going to be banned for what, 3? We've got Chelsea, Arsenal.
That's 3 games. Are we lucky? Yeah. I look at it this way. Yes, Cavani comes in. Is Cavani fit? We don't know. So Cavani might come in and be in a complete nightmare for 3 games. How do you look at this building a team going forward? We're talking about United challenging City and Liverpool and getting in the top 4. Today, Manchester United are not that club. We know that. We've seen us lose 6-1. So is it about Cavani? No. Is it about Telles? No. It's about the whole squad and the upgrade and how you look at it. Cavani gives United an extra experienced head, and I'm absolutely all for that. I think it's a shrewd signing right at the end of the window, but we shouldn't be getting to the end of the window and waiting for that. You shouldn't be in that predicament. So you take what you can get. So Cavani will come in, and we don't know if Cavani will be a success. Hopefully he will be. And I believe that he's still good enough. I saw him loads in the last 2 or 3 years, and he's still absolutely an elite player at the best of his game. But we shouldn't be relying on Cavani just because Martial got sent off. That's ridiculous. So I kind of look at the kind of bigger picture, and I think that Manchester United had several big targets this summer, and they've effectively missed out on all of them because Telles wasn't a number 1 target. I can tell you that 100%.
Who was number 1 target?
What, in terms of who they want to bring to the club was Sancho. Sancho was the number 1 target. They talked about centre-backs, and they got to a point where they talked themselves out of centre-backs because they wanted to
Upamecano should have been... As soon as we were linked,
they could have got him. They could have got him. They decided that they were going to wait. They decided because they have got Mengi, they have got Tuanzebe, they have got Bailly coming back from injury. They decided that if they could offload Rojo and offload Smalling, that kind of balanced the books with the centre backs. You can look. It's the whole project, and I know football fans hate the word project because it kind of disconnects the passion that football fans feel for a football club. But it is a project at the end of the day. Every season is a project. You have to look at your 2 transfer windows and what are you going to do? It's no good looking at Chelsea and what they've done. It's no good looking at Liverpool. It's no good looking at City. You have to look within. And when you look at Manchester United at the moment, they decided to spin this wheel of COVID-19 and whether they could get players. And we are now 24 hours from the end of the window, and they haven't got their top target.
And they're looking to pay Cavani's agent / brother 10 million.
Who cares?
Whether that happens or not,
it doesn't matter. Again, logic for fans will go, 10 million for an agent. I don't care. Get the right player, pay the agent 50 million. I don't care. I'm a football fan at the end of the day. I'm not there to balance the book for the Glazers. The Glazers will do that happily themselves. Yeah. And we understand that as a journalist and as a football writer, that's how football clubs work. I get the owners will always try and balance the books before they do anything. But it doesn't matter what Cavani's agent wants. Now they're in a position, they'll have to pay that. But, they might get $1 million off it. It might be 9 million, 7 million, 5 million. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's about getting the correct players. Now, Cavani will strengthen United. Tellers will strengthen United. Do they take this team into the top 4? Not for me. Not the moment.
Is Cavani the right player? I mean, I look, Green Devil, I'm very excited for Cavani. I think he's exactly... Look, as Rob said, Cavani by himself, panic buy, I think. with a Telles, a Sancho, a Van der Beek, we needed a centre back. I think that's a massive problem. But Cavani could be a very shrewd signing. That front three is very young and very inexperienced. Cavani, the question probably is, does he have still enough in the tank? I've spoken to a few people and they say he works so hard. He's got great attitude. He's brilliant in the air. Telles coming in, that's an extra thing that United don't have. How many crosses do they put in the box? How many times do they have a target man, someone that can head the ball? We're massively lacking in that respect. But Rob, I'm going to ask you one question because you talk about the project. I completely agree. It's a project. Whether fans like to hear that or not, that's besides the point. That's what it is. But we talk about Liverpool's project. They went and got Jurgen Klopp. Every man and their dog could see Jurgen Klopp was going to be one of the best in the world. He was fantastic at Dortmund. He toppled Bayern Munich. He got to the Champions League final. There's credentials there. And United, you can have a project. I agree. And I think Ole needs. Well, I did think Ole needed to have the time to finish that project. But why put so much money and time into someone who myself, maybe this is just me thinking that you can disagree, but I don't think United will go and win a title under him. So why put so much time and effort when we're in a good position? I think when you look at the squad, people say we're not, but actually you look at the squad objectively, you look at that front three, you look at that midfield, it's stacked with quality now. There are areas it needs to improve. The defense is a problem, but this is United's best squad, I would say, in 7 years. So you're looking at that squad, but you think that, okay, Ole got us in the Champions League. Get someone better in, a better manager who can take you from B to C. Someone that's more tactically astute, someone that has the experience, someone that, with all due respect, has earned the opportunity to be Man United's manager because of his ability, not because of who he is, and take yourself to the next level. But this is what I don't understand. We can talk about the project with Ole, but it's like putting all your money on someone that in hindsight, you look back and you think, yeah, he wasn't good enough to be the manager. And that's what we have to look at. We have to be ruthless as a club. We're too sentimental. We keep hold of players for too long. Like we talk about the old days of Fergie, but football's changed. Football's moved on. We can't keep on saying, well, he's going to bring back the Fergie way, because that way doesn't exist anymore. We look at the hierarchies of club. We look at Man City, look at Liverpool. The manager isn't all encompassing. He's not in charge of everything. You've got director of football. There's different components, and United is still trying to go towards a Fergie sort of way with Ole, and it's not working for me. It's not going to give the fruition that we want. Now you've got a manager, forget who it is. Let's say Pochettino, Allegri. There, two managers who have the reputation of being amongst the best in the world. If United were a little bit there, and we talk about the board, we've done that. But if they had a little bit of brains, they would look, all right, we're 4 games into the season. We can save our season and we can still go and hit all our objectives we want if we make the change now. Why let it run till October, till December, where we're too far behind, and then we make the decision that the environment's negative, it's toxic, and then we're back at square one again?
A few things to unpack from that. I look at it like this, is that you can criticise Ole, he got the job, and I would say his record of the past 12 months proves that he deserved that job. Yeah, so a lot of this is about perception. So people perceive Ole to be kind of some, bumbling fool who kind of isn't tough behind the scenes and all of this. And they believe that because it's about projection. So they kind of take that on, and that's how, in their mind's eye, that's kind of how they view it all. I personally don't believe that. Like I'm just saying here, if you sack Ole today or tomorrow, you bring in Pochettino and you get a bit of a bounce. And then in 2 years' time, we're having the same conversation about Pochettino because United aren't where we want them to be. The issue is the board. If the board do not appoint a director of football, they are negligent. It's as simple as that. You need a director of football to drive the project. Every top football club has one. Whether you're Florentino Perez at Real Madrid as the president who drives it from the top, or whether you are at Liverpool with FSG, where you actually look at the structure of sports owners who know how to win in different sports and apply it to a different model in football. You have to kind of take all those experiences and kind of find a way. Manchester United, yeah, you're right. They have tried to return to the kind of manager giving the advice on the players and being almost like a director of football himself, like Fergie was. But you said something there about, how long is it before Manchester United, could win a title or whatever. Fergie managed that club at United for 4 years and got nowhere near a title. One season they came second, but they were awful for 4 years. So I always do believe that sometimes you do just have to wait. Yeah, sometimes you just have to wait, get through the bad times, and then see what happens. But of course, in the modern game, you can't wait forever. Because it's just the way it is.
Also, Rob, Sir Alex didn't he win the European Cup with Aberdeen? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. There's track record here. I'm just going to read out one comment because Jonathan and me, we go back and forth a lot, and he thinks I'm anti-Ollie. Look, Rob, we've sat and we've spoken on many podcasts. I'm not anti-Ollie. I look at the situation and I just look at the bigger picture. I backed Ollie, and he deserves to be backed. But we got to also look at the situation and think, is he good enough to be the manager at Man United? And that's a fair question to ask.
But what do we judge that on? What are we judging that on? Do we judge it on his record, or do we judge
his
it on
record and what you're seeing on the pitch? If you look at the performance today, tell me now, he's been in job for how long? What, 2 years now?
2 years.
Does that look like a side? Does that look like a side who are well drilled? Can you tell me? I know this tactics. I've done
the Tottenham result away for a minute. Take the Tottenham result away. Yeah, and I'm not defending Ole because, like I've just said there, I think he's pretty close to getting the sack if this carries on, obviously. Yeah. But in his 2 years, and we take the last 12 months as kind of the barometer, especially, and I've said this on your show before, where Manchester United from January to the end of the season won more points than Liverpool and won more points than Manchester City for a long period of time. Are we judging him on his record, or are we judging him on perception? Now, I believe in what you're saying there, that you are judging him on perception. Because I think if United win 6-1 today, nobody says, well, we shouldn't have Ole in charge. Maybe the real hardcore Ole outs and the real hardcores Pochettino's in, and the real hardcore Mourinho cult that follow him everywhere he goes. I think they obviously say that all the time. But do we say it unless you lose 6-1? Now, what you also said there, I do believe that when you have a performance that bad, it does point towards other things. And you have to kind of look at chemistry and morale and all of those things. And like I've just said to you there, I do not believe that the morale at Manchester United as a football club in the dressing room is bad.
Yeah,
it will be bad tonight. It will be bad tonight, and they'll all go home licking their wounds. But you can look at individual players, and I think we should, you see. I think that's the other way of looking at this in terms of how do you actually decipher what is going on in this team. And I think you can look at that back four, I thought Luke Shaw played all right on the front foot today, but defensively wasn't good. I thought Harry Maguire was a complete disaster. He didn't lead. He looked slow, and he looks like a guy who just almost ended up in jail. Yeah. So this is the thing psychologically going on with him. I thought Bailly had his chance today. I think he absolutely blew it, 100%. Aaron Wan-Bissaka still looks miles off where we want him to be, whether that be his fitness or whether that be his decision-making. You saw with the goal where Kane needed to just flick the ball through from the free kick, and Wan-Bissaka's on another planet rather than standing in front of the ball, which is what he should have done. So that's the back four. David De Gea will almost definitely be dropped after this. Yeah, he conceded 6 goals, and there's a goalkeeper hungry to take those gloves. So that's just the defence we're talking about. Yeah, Pogba, disaster today. Worst game I've seen him play for a long time.
Yeah,
looks out of shape, looks mentally gone today, didn't look fit, and he was left on the pitch at half-time. And that's, again, I think Ole got that really wrong. Those half-time substitutions where he was trying to shore it up at 4-1. You don't shore it up at 4-1, go for it. Yeah, get Van der Beek on and go for it. Go 4-3-3 and go for it. Obviously, you're a man down, but you've still got the chance to score a goal and change the game. Fernandes obviously went off. He was sacrificed. Rashford, I think, worked hard today. No quality. Martial, we can talk about that sending off. I'm speechless that the referee would send a player off like that without going and looking.
Let's talk about that now before we go back.
It's crazy. And I think Mason did all right. I think Mason tried. Mason didn't look like his head went down at any point until he got substituted. But you shouldn't be relying on a kid to kind of pull you out of a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to read out a few comments. Jonathan seems to think that I am having an emotional reaction. Look, at the end of the day, mate, this is not just about the loss. I can take a loss, but we look back last week against Brighton. That could have been 6. This is the point. Yes, we haven't had the preseason, but the point is that this performance was coming. And when I look, okay, City lost 5-2, fine. But when I look at City, you know exactly how they're going to go out on the pitch. You know exactly how they're coached. You know the patterns of play. You know exactly what Man City are going to do. You know that the fullbacks are going to come in, that the wingers are going to go really wide. And you know that De Bruyne and whoever's playing with him, whether it's Foden, are going to be milling about in those channels between the defense and the midfield. We know Ollie's got tactics, but you have to look at it. And we look like a bunch of 11 guys have just been put out there to play. Now, what
tactics would you change today? What tactics would you have played to go against Tottenham?
I would have played.
I would ask people this when they mention it.
Yeah, I probably would have gone 3 at the back. I would have shored up that defense. We knew exactly what Jose was going to do. We knew Jose was going to play on the counter. And as soon as you saw Son on there, I thought, shit. Like he's in great form. You got Harry Kane as well. Harry Kane was dropping so deep to pick up the ball, and he's got a fantastic playmaker. And we did not cut that out. And when you look at that back four, I knew straight away. I was like, put Shaw in there next to Wan-Bissaka and Bailly, just shore up the defense, and then I would have gone for a 3-5-2, and I would have probably played Rashford, Martial up top. And I would have played Van der Beek instead of Pogba, not because I don't rate Pogba, because I just knew that Pogba hasn't looked himself. Maybe giving Van der Beek, who's played well when he's played on, I would have given him a game. I would have probably had to play Wan-Bissaka wing back. I would have looked at possibly Williams. But I would have gone for 3 at the back because I know defensively we're so poor, and it just played completely into his hands. Matic had a shocker. I don't know what was wrong with him. Again, there is match fitness element to it. But the point is that today was completely unavoidable. Now, we might as well talk about the defense. It's gone to Harry Maguire. I've got serious probably reservations about Maguire. I didn't want us to sign him. I supported him. He's definitely improved the defense. Statistically, you just have to see it from last season. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. He's playing like someone who looks like he nearly went to jail. But when you spend £80 million, he's making a mistake every single week. Now, Ollie's got a big decision to make. I mean, Bailly's completely ruined his chances now, I think. And now Lindelof probably comes back in. We haven't got the options there. But when you spend that much money on a player and you made him captain, and I said this on my own podcast earlier on in the week, that making Maguire captain was one of the biggest mistakes we did. He needs to focus on his game. When you make him captain, he's just come in. I just think that's such a big mistake because now you can't drop him. He's £80 million player and he's the captain. Now, what can Ollie do in that respect? Does he drop him? Does he carry on playing him? He's not good enough, Rob. If United want to go and take the next step, he's not good enough. I don't think there's anything different.
Push can drop him. Captains get dropped all the time. It's a complete mythology.
We'll do that,
captains don't get dropped. The issue is, what have you got instead of that captain? So for me, you can look at leadership on the pitch. I don't think it was a bad move at the time to give him the captaincy. Why? Because he was brought in to lead. He was brought in to be a leader. And obviously when Ashley Young left the club, I don't think Ashley Young was particularly much of a leader anyway. He kind of, as an experienced head, got the armband by default and, was a bit of a shouter and a bit of a wailer and all of that. And that's why he got the captaincy. You wanted someone that if you've given them this big responsibility of being a world record centre-back, and you believe in them from the off, and you want them to be at your football club for a long time, giving him the armband at that time. And again, Manchester United players will tell you this. They were happy with Maguire's leadership skills. They were happy with what he did. Like you just said there, he did statistically improve the defence last season, no doubt about that. His individual performances haven't been good enough. We have not seen the Harry Maguire that we saw at Leicester City or even before that. So why is that? What's going on?
Just answering this question here at the bottom, why I didn't want him, because when you spend £80 million, you could have got Koulibaly, who's a better defender. That's what I mean. Yes, he's improved us. I mean, do you think, Rob, that spending £80 million on him, yes, he might have improved us, but was a mistake because you could have got a better player for that amount of money?
I'll reiterate what I've said before. I don't care about transfer fees. Ultimately, it's about, if that's the player you want, what are you going to pay for him, and will you do it? And we execute the deal. We know that Man United wanted Harry Maguire the year before with Mourinho and didn't want to pay 80 million, and then 12 months later paid 80 million for him. So I'm sure United did that begrudgingly, but it's about whether he's the right player for you. Now, I also said at that time I didn't think Maguire was exactly the perfect fit for what United needed when they signed him. But I did understand that United needed leadership, and that if you were going to bring a ball carrier into the football club, and that's what Maguire still is, like, let's not pretend what he's supposed to be. He is a ball carrier, that you must pair him up with someone who's got pace. Today, Manchester United paired him up with someone who's got pace, and it blew up in their faces. So again, we can talk about tactics. We can talk about 3-5-2, 4-2-3-1. We can talk about all these different formations. You would have played 3-5-2 today, and United would have still lost 6-1. Yeah, because it's about the players. So we talk about tactics, and I think sometimes you need to kind of just distance yourself from it a little bit, because we can all say in hindsight what we would have tactically done. Lots of people were saying to me recently, let's play a 4-4-2 diamond because that fits what United have got. United haven't played a 4-4-2 diamond for about 5 years. It's like, what? It's not a modern tactic. So people can have their ideas of what to do. You could have played 3 at the back today, and Harry Kane would have still absolutely crucified Harry Maguire. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Or whatever player he was on. Bailly would have still made those mistakes in a 3. So when you look at those things, it's about, right, how do you make it work? And really, these guys have got to take responsibility. When they go through their training every day, they have to then go and produce it in matches. And what you saw today, this is why I call it the perfect storm, because United could have practiced any tactic to that last week for Tottenham, and they would have still got hammered, because it's about personal responsibility. And that's why I'm not letting Ole off the hook. Like I said, I think results define you as a manager, and if results carry on anywhere like this, even if you lose the next 3 games 1-0 and you play well, doesn't matter, you get sacked. That's kind of how it works in football. There is no, like you said about sentimentality, there is no sentimentality on that Glazer board. They're about profits. Yeah, that's what they're about. We know that. They're not about trophies, they're about profits. They know that Manchester United winning gives them more profits, which is why they play the game. But ultimately, what are they doing? You know, how are they making this better? They're making it worse by not having a director of football, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, 100%. When we've spoken about that so many times, at the end of the day, a director of football wouldn't have allowed 1.2 billion to be spent that badly. A director of football would have probably persisted with a manager and would have stuck to a style of play. And that's the problem. This is not Ollie's fault. And this is what I want to say. I understand there's a lot of people in the comments saying, oh, well, it's just rinse and repeat, isn't it? You sack the manager, you back Poch for, let's say it's Poch for a certain amount of time. He gets us top 4. Then it's the next summer. They don't back him properly. There's a bad season, and then rinse and repeat. I understand that. But when I look at sort of, you've got to look at it as well in the objectively at what's going on at Man United right now. And I can only see one thing, and it's just going to unravel. I'm being completely honest with you. After this, how are the players going to pick themselves up after this? Honestly, Rob, how? Because 6-1 like that, the negativity surrounding the club has been created, as the comments say, by Ed Woodward, by the Glazers, because of the lack of efficiency in the in the transfer market. And what you will see is that you will see probably that maybe someone will come in probably tomorrow, but that's not good enough. And this negativity is definitely affecting the players, in my opinion, from the outside. Look at social media, Rob. Every time United posts, the sort of anger and the hate that's thrown towards Glazers, and rightly so. But there's just such a difficult place for everyone at United at the moment to sort of function. And when you're looking at the players out there now, I just don't see how Ollie can turn this around. And this is why I say, I would love him to, by the way, but this is why I say, okay, we're 4 games in, make the change, bring something new in, get some positivity in, get that bump. Maybe in the long run, yeah, people are saying, oh, well, what happens if this happens next year with Poch? We know what the bigger issue is, but something you can control is the management, is the way the team are playing, the way the team are developing. And I'm not seeing a consistent development. I'm not seeing consistent style of play or patterns of play in this team. It's too much. If United don't get a penalty, and if United don't rely on individual brilliance, they don't win the game. Rob, if United don't score first, I know today they did, but usually when United don't score first, they don't win the game. These are problems that we're seeing. There's quality out there. And this is what I'm not saying you, but other people have said to me, what would Poch do differently? There's so much quality out there. He wanted Bruno. He wanted Van der Beek. Any manager would look at that squad and think, I've got Paul Pogba. I mean, let's talk about Paul Pogba. Fantastic player, but he's just not there at the races, is he, right now?
No, he's not. And it's a difficult one, because we talked about fitness before. And I do still think that United are in this cycle of being unfit. We saw with Tottenham, they've played, 4 games back-to-back really, really quickly. And that's actually helped them. It's got their fitness levels up. You saw it today, yeah? You saw that their reaction times and everything that they were doing, they look like a team that's been playing lots of football, and they've just kind of, just run with it, and it's actually done them really, really good. It's helped them. When you look at United, the kind of schedule has been against them, but you've got to counter that. And when you look at Paul Pogba, I think when you look in those situations about where you looked him to maybe pull the team along, he's not that kind of player. He never has been. He's a player that supplements what's good about the team. So when the team play well and he plays his supplementation role, that's great. But when you pay 90 odd million for a player, is that what you need? So it's one of those catch-22 situations. You saw today Pogba trying to up the effort level and then doing a ridiculous sliding tackle for the penalty, which was absolutely criminal. And then you saw that he probably should have got sent off for having a raised boot later on. So he's not the guy you look to go and pull you out of a hole. And this is where footballers have to make that commitment to being better. Like you just said there, how do these guys rectify it? What you do is you go in the training ground and you fix it. Yeah, you work with the manager and you fix it and you go and be better. And if you're not good enough, you get sold. And this is how United have operated in the last year. You know, Lukaku was talking quite a bit today and about one thing or another of how, you know, there's the striker situation. Lukaku got sold because he wasn't good enough. He couldn't do the job that Ole wanted him to do. He just couldn't. He couldn't come off the bench and prove it. You know, so it really is a kind of, it's an art football and about how you balance your squad. And this is what Ole will get judged on at the end of the day. You know, Sanchez got given a big contract, couldn't do it. He's gone. So now these other players that are here at the football club, it all still stands for him, for them. You know, you look at Luke Shaw. It's interesting, Luke Shaw saying what he said today, because it could be a case that Tellez comes in and takes his place and Luke Shaw don't play another game for the rest of the season. That could be the case. But Luke Shaw is standing there, honest, with his hand on his heart, saying, we need players. Now, that's the message from within the camp. That's something that all the players will be saying to each other privately in the dressing room. They'll be saying, we need help. We need more. But they're going to get Cavani, who I think is a good signing. I really do. I think he fits at this moment of time what United need. I think Tellez is a good signing when he's confirmed. And I think, you know, when you look at Van der Beek, I said this multiple times as well. He hasn't played football for 6 months. There might well be a fitness concern with him. That's why he sat on the bench at the moment. But he is there for the long term. He's not a signing who's been brought in to magically work today and everything is fixed. But United are this big Rubik's Cube. And Ole's got to find a way of solving this puzzle, because the team now looks like it's going to face a level of adversity that's not faced under Ole before. Maybe in that run towards the end of his first season, where it all fell apart.
Christmas as well.
Yeah, and they just ran out of gas completely. And then the next season, obviously, it didn't start well, but then they finished last season really well. Or they finished, obviously, got the points that they needed. You can't rerun that all the time, and that's what the board will think. The board will look at this, and if they see that United are not progressing up the table very quickly in the next few weeks, then Ole will probably pay for his job. But I agree with the comments. You know, if you just rinse and repeat all the time, Real Madrid do this, yeah? Real Madrid do it, and people go, oh, but it's fine because they win a Champions League in the middle, and then they sack the manager, and then they win a Champions League, they sack the manager. Chelsea did it. Chelsea, Ancelotti, great manager, wins the league, next season they sack him. I don't want Man United to be that kind of club. I really don't. Why? Because it's not what this club was born from. Now, people can say it's not the past and all of this and Fergie and Sir Matt Busby and all of these things. Ultimately, you have to have an identity as a football club and what you want to be. What the board should be doing is finding the right man, first and foremost, and backing him and doing that. And they don't do that. Yeah, it's scattergun. And they don't have a director of football, and they do not have a director. You know, like Gary Neville said it absolutely right, you know, about direction and about what's the direction from the board, and it looks completely rudderless. So it looks like there's no direction. It's all reactionary. And that's why Man United are where they are, not because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer played a formation that didn't work on the day.
No, absolutely.
Formation. It's about behind the scenes. And it was great that the camera kept panning to Ed today, because Ed is part of the problem. And he's a huge part of the problem. He's not a football guy. He's an accountant. So if you're getting an accountant to balance your books and bring you in players, I bet you he balances the books before he brings in a name. And that's what he does. So United have to find a way now. Irony of it is that United now might not go out tomorrow and spend a ton of money that people didn't think they were going to spend, because they do panic buy at that point. They go, right, we need a centre-back. You know, Koulibaly's on the market, and he is very much on the market. Right, we're going to go in £60 million bid. Bang, Napoli accept it. Koulibaly's on a plane, and everyone gets happy. Does that solve the problems at Man United? No, I don't believe it does. It fixes a tiny little bit, but it's about the wider structure and how you go forward. I love Pochettino. I think he's a great manager. I think people give him a hard time about the whole I haven't won a trophy thing. Well, most managers don't win trophies. The ones at the top do. Pep does. Klopp, when he came to Liverpool, he was considered a guy that didn't get it done.
And he was doubted, remember?
He did well at Dortmund. He got to finals, but he was considered the guy that doesn't get it done. And I loved Klopp. I was like, I want him at United. He's stylistically a kind of manager that fits Man United. He'll play attacking football. And, you know, he'll just live and die by his philosophy. And I like that about managers. And I actually think Ole is trying to do that. Ole is trying to play United football at the end of the day. Whatever people's opinions about of him personally as a coach or his tactics, he believes in the philosophy of the football club. And I believe you must have a manager that does that. Klopp, is very much well fitted to Liverpool's philosophy. Pep is very much fitted to the whole Barcelona ethos of Manchester City, because that's really how that club is built, around ex-Barcelona delegates from that club. That's how they are. And I think at Manchester United, you need someone who's going to play Manchester United football. If you go for Allegri just because he won titles with Juventus, what's the point? It's just another Mourinho.
Yeah, I would
just another Van Gaal. You're going to get slow, boring football, and we're going to be on this show here now going, well, United had one shot on target, 1-1-0, but we hate it. No, it's not the answer. The answer is always somewhere in the middle. I always think in terms of moderation. There's a lot of work to do. Ole's got to solve this. And if he doesn't solve it, he will pay with it with his job. The irony of it is that he's proved in the last year that he can get results. And if he leaves Manchester United tomorrow, he'll get a job somewhere. People will want him. People will say, you actually did a good job at Man United with the resources you have. You might not get a top club.
Would you get a job in the Premier League, do you think?
Yeah, totally. Look at some of the guys that got Premier League jobs.
I think he would as well. I agree with that. I think
it might not be a top club. We're not talking top 4, top 5, top 6. And I don't believe he got the job because he scored that goal in Barcelona, for United to win 2-1. I don't believe that. He didn't get the job because he's a legend. He got the job because he did all of his training as a coach behind the scenes with that football club. And he was really highly thought of from the guys behind the scenes at United. They always said Ole will turn into a top manager. They said that when he was a reserve team boss, that was the common thing you heard from Man United. They believed that Ole would one day become a top boss. Now, we didn't believe he would succeed Sir Alex one day, after Van Gaal, Mourinho, and obviously David Moyes. That wasn't in the thinking then, but that's how the board thought, and that was always there. So I wasn't massively surprised when they gave him a contract, but that was always about the Pochettino situation as well. And obviously we keep cycling back to that, is that they didn't believe that they were going to get Poch for anything short of 30 million. And United didn't want to pay that. Tottenham were not going to accept a penny less to take the manager. Ironically, they get to a Champions League final and then they sack their manager. Is that the right thing to do? Be Spurs, get to a Champions League final and then sack your manager. Is that right? I don't know. For me, it's not. That's not how I want my football club to act. But what kind of you're saying there is that's the correct way. That's how a big club acts. And I do think that big clubs sometimes believe their own hype. Sometimes you have to go organic and fix everything at ground level first. And then move on. Rob. And United are just not good at that. United are not good at the organic side of football going, do you know what? Let's sit there and actually fix this. I think now United's recruitment is better than it's ever been in the last 7 years. And yet we're still talking about poor recruitment at the end of a transfer window, which proves that it's not the recruitment team, it's not the coach, it's the board who release the funds and make the decision.
Yeah, some fantastic points. Something I do want to draw on is that I will say this as well. I think all the signings under Ole have been our better signings or our best signings in the past 7 years. I will say that he has brought a vision. So anyone that thinks I'm Ole out, Jonathan, I'm shouting at you. Now, keep on getting your comments in, mate. It's really great to have your interaction. I like it when people disagree with me. But people think I'm Ole out. And Rob, we've spoken extensively about Ole probably 3 or 4 times. I'm not Ole out. But I do look at the sort of longer term vision of it. And do I think that he's quite good enough to take us to that next level? I don't. I'm just going to be honest with you. Do I want him to get sacked? No. But when I look at the situation, I think, can he get us out of this hole? I don't think he can. I think we're going to be having this conversation, Rob, in October. We're going to do an Ole special where he's been sacked. That's just my opinion. That's not me being Ole out. That's not me being
the case. Biased.
Yeah. And it might be the case. And we've discussed this. I mean, I've got a clip from a podcast where Rob said, haven't you, Rob? In October, if Ole has a bad start, it's very possible Pochettino will be here. There's nothing to say that will happen. There's nothing to say that won't happen. But what we're seeing right now is we're on a downward spiral currently with what's going on, and there's more factors to it. But what I will say is that Ole has come in, he's got a plan. We don't have a director of football, and that's showing. I tweeted out straight after the game that Ed Woodward's had the job for as a CEO for 7 years, is it now? Mm-hmm. 4 managers have come in, 4 failures. Where's the accountability? And that's the problem. There's no accountability. And at the end of the day, the manager does poorly, he gets sacked. If Woodward left tomorrow, the Glazers would have a replacement on that commercial site like that. And that's the problem. 7 years of no director of football. And I am of the view that what manager can succeed here? You put Klopp with this squad, he wouldn't win the title. I think you'd get better output. And this is what I'm more striving towards, better output with what we've got, because there is quality in this squad. And I won't agree with this idea there's not quality in this squad. There's not enough quality to win the league, but there's quality in this squad to easily get top 4. We spent a bucket load of money, Rob. So what we saw today was unacceptable. But I want to talk about Martial. I want to talk about that red card. I mean, we've seen some funny decisions, mate. We've seen the handball decisions, which have just been a farce. We've seen red cards as well, which have been a farce. I mean, today you saw the Aubameyang tackle. I don't know if you saw, that's a straight red. And Martial, look, it was silly, but how can that decision stand? I mean, that just henpegged United back completely, didn't it? United had no chance after that, and saw what happened.
Yeah, no, I actually think that even at 2-1, when United were losing, that they weren't playing that badly. You know, they looked threatening. They were passing the ball through midfield, and they were getting on the front three. And that Tottenham centre-back pairing was absolutely as bad as Man United's centre-back pairing.
Yeah,
you know, for
shocking.
sure. For sure. So, you know, one team wins 6-1. You kind of have to kind of look at all the kind of bits and pieces together. That red card, people could say it's a biased view or whatever you want to call it. When you look at the sequence from start to finish, and that's what VAR does, it looks at the sequence from the first point to the last. The first point starts with Lamela pushing into Martial's chest, then raising his arm to effectively push his elbow into Martial's neck or lower chin, whatever you want to call it. And then Martial stupidly flicks his arm out, brushes his face like that, and Lamela grabs his face and goes down. Now, none of us are idiots, and I don't believe referees are idiots either. And when you get to look at it from 6 different angles, you can say 100% that Martial retaliated. And retaliation in football is a red card. So he probably should have got a red card. But also pushing your elbow in someone's face is also a red card. So they both should have walked. You could say that. Or as a referee going to a monitor, the altercation, the referee can judge that for himself and say, it's handbags, you've both pushed each other, yellow card, both of you, one more and you're off. And Lamela actually got a yellow card not so long afterwards. So he would have gone for 2 yellows. It changed the game, absolutely. And I think United were on the front foot at that point. I think United were, you know, they looked like they were panicking in terms of when Spurs were on the back four, and that was a problem. And you could see the confidence levels in defence were not good. That ball that got played over the top, I think, from Lamela into Son, and, you know, Wan-Bissaka's miles off, and you kind of think, what's going on here? Those things happen in football, but you have to roll with the punches. But I think as soon as you go down to 10 men, this United team gave up. And for me, I said, I don't know if it's your show, I said it on another show, what was good about the Brighton result the other day, despite how badly they played and obviously winning 3-2 in that first game between the two teams, I said it was good that when they were faced with adversity, they went on and won the game. That's a really good sign of a team that does believe in each other. And what you saw today, as soon as Martial got sent off, they just lost the belief completely. And that's why they got hammered by 6 goals, you know. And the other thing I will add to this is that when you see something happen like that, and obviously the guys were all there in the penalty area packed, I want my players on that referee complaining. Yeah,
like
I want them in that referee's face. Yeah, and I'm not one of these people who go, oh well, you know, you can't talk to referees. If you can't talk to referees in that situation, when can you talk to them? I wanted the United players to kick off at that point. I want them to defend their player and say, no, that's not how it was. You know, that's when I want Ole running down the line, you know, screaming and giving it some. I don't want Ole doing it all the time, but I want a reaction, because that reaction then can carry you forward. That kind of feeling of being hard done by. You can say, right, do you know what? We've just lost a man. 10 we're down. We're losing the game. We're down to 10 men. We're coming after them. Yeah, we're going. And they didn't do that. They looked like boys. And when you put men against boys in that situation, you're probably going to lose. And that's how it felt in the second half. Those 2 substitutions, Ole sat there, obviously, in the dressing room thinking, what do I do? How do I stop this hemorrhaging, like the bleeding, non-stop pouring out of the body of Manchester United? What do you do to stop it? And his answer was Fred and McTominay. I think that was Ole's worst decision of the match, because I think at that point you maybe change one. You might bring on Van der Beek and say, right, 45 minutes, mate, go out there, change the game for me, like he did do in another, obviously in the game where he scored on his debut. And you do something positive, but that felt negative, and it also kind of met with the mindset of the players. And that's where you hold Ole accountable. You know, as we're sat here saying, does a manager deserve time? At that moment, I think he made the wrong decision. And he said in his interview right at the end, I make the decisions. I put the team out, and I 100% put my hands up that I've made mistakes in this game, because you can't just blame the players, but I'm the manager. And that's the bottom dollar at the end of the day. We can kind of crunch it all. We can look at all the individual bits, and they are all important. But that red card, I don't know what that referee's thinking. Why does the referee not just go, I'm going over to the screen, it will take me 30 seconds to get over there. I watched 2-3 replays and I just backed my own decision up. He didn't do that. And you could see he was talking to VAR. And I think what he was asking VAR was there retaliation? VAR says, yes, there was. And he goes, right, retaliation, red card. That's a very binary way of officiating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, some fantastic points. What I will say is something I do want to pick up on is there are those characters that United used to have where they would hound the ref. You could see there's aggression. That we were passive today, weren't we? And honestly, Spurs look like a Jose Mourinho side. Whatever you think about Jose Mourinho, I mean, I'm happy he's no longer at the club because obviously what happened, but that was a proper Jose Mourinho team today. They had a bite. They seemed to want it more. I don't think they were much better than us in terms of quality on the pitch. Fitness has an element to it, but they just wanted it more, Rob. They were much more aggressive. They were much more direct. And when obviously Martial got sent off, it could have gone two ways. United step up, and I didn't see anyone in that team think, right, guys, come on, get in. Let's keep it tight. We still got this. We just capitulated.
Sorry to add into that, just to add something that, albeit, believe it or not, Graham Souness said after the game, and he talked about Lamela. Now, he was trying to make a negative point, but this is the modern game at the end of the day. And he was saying, for Latin players to win the game but at all costs is what's important. And it's 100% true. You look at someone like Luis Suarez. We'll see that with Cavani coming into the football club. Cavani were coming in, and to him, he's being paid to win. He's not being paid to make numbers up. He's coming to the football club to win. He'll do what it takes. That's what I believe in terms of his personality. So, yeah, exactly. So you look at Lamela, and Lamela in that moment, when he got that little slap across the face, he thought, I've got the chance here to make a big difference in the game. He went down and he got Martial sent off. You could say that Martial, the minute he gets the elbow in the face, he should be going down. Yeah? And then maybe you say that's a red card, and that changes the game the complete opposite way. That's the modern game. And I don't give all this about the Premier League, being, holier than holy and whiter than white and all of this rubbish, because it is not. There's as many dirty players in the Premier League as you get in Italy and in Spain and in South America. It's just the lay of the land. But you have to do what it takes to win. And I want United players to do exactly the same. And I think today, you look at the guys, and again, you kind of look at them individually. Did everybody do everything it took to win that game today? No, nowhere near. And that's the problem. It's not a technical problem always. Sometimes you actually just have to look at the kind of heart of a team and say, right, what's wrong? And I think in recent weeks, we've seen that they've just not been able to get themselves up. Now, that could be a tactical thing in terms of what they're doing on a training pitch. It could be a number of factors. It could be a case that Ole's losing the dressing room slowly but surely. Yeah. And we'll see that with the next results. If United come out in the next game after the international break and win 6-0, does that mean it's fixed? Not necessarily, but it will make people feel better. And we have to just see how it plays out, I think, for those next games to see if this team can pick itself up. They should be able to. They are the top professionals, highly paid. They pay for their countries. These are not, lads who go and play park football who just got hammered. They're not boys, but they look like boys today and they played like boys.
Yeah, fantastic points. What I will say is that the teams out there today embodied their manager. Whatever you got to say about Jose Mourinho, again, I'm not saying I want him back, but they had a bite to them. They had desire. Look, there's an element of match fitness. Like you said, that was that fourth game in 8 days or 9 days. You think they'd be tired, but they just looked a step above. But for me, it's what we've spoken about before. But for me, I just think there's an element. I didn't think he's lost the dressing room in terms of Ole. I mean, there's an element of some players maybe not playing, to their potential. We've seen before that these group of players as well. That's another issue as well. I'm not saying the players are completely faultless because they're not, but we've seen before when they don't want to play, they'll just down the tools. They did it under Jose. Some of them did it under LVG. And what I will say is, moving on, I suppose, to the final question, Rob. I mean, where are you sitting right now on the whole thing? Are you feeling a little bit better about it? Are you feeling like Ole deserves the time to to make, obviously to make the necessary changes, or are you of the view that we'll bring players in tomorrow that might give us a momentary lift, but inevitably come October you could see Ole without the job?
As a Man United fan, I'm furious by what I saw today. And forget whether it was 6-1, 5-1, 4-1, that doesn't really matter. We didn't see what we expected from our football team. Do I think Ole could get sacked off the back of this? Absolutely. I think there's a period of, if results continue to spiral, then you have to hold your hands up and you're accountable and you might lose your job. For me, the bigger question and the bigger answer comes from where the board are and what the board are doing. And, football fans chant, sack the board, and it's the one thing you can't do. You can't sack the board. It's impossible. But when you look at kind of how they're mismanaging the club, I've used this word before. I think it's malpractice. I think when their strategies, when I've come on your show and spoken to other guys on their podcasts or fan channels or the press, I've always said, I've talked about it in terms of what the Glazers are thinking and what the Glazers are putting out into the press and what the Glazers believe. And the Glazers believe that they can get their targets for the prices that they want. That's what they believe. And they believe that they will not be held hostage by football clubs. This is what we're seeing with the Tellers deal at the moment. Porto want the money. United say we don't want to pay it. So you end up with stalemate. This comes down to how you conduct yourself. And even though clubs do always say that United conduct themselves well over the business table when they're doing deals, that they're very straight, that Matt Judge is a very straight guy and says this is what we're prepared to offer, ultimately, United are not getting it done, are they? So why are we where we are today? Why is Ole having to put out a team today that was so far off a Tottenham team that basically hasn't, made the improvements in certain areas? So like Reguilon played today, Bale is still to come back into club, but these are all kind of feel like signings that they weren't top targets to start off with. It's not a case that Tottenham are going shopping and doing some stellar business, but they're strengthening. And United might bring in Cavani. He might have an impact. Tellez might have an impact. You look at Van der Beek. There's another couple of players that United are looking at in terms of youthful prospects that might come to the football club. But their top target was Sancho. And if they don't get Sancho tomorrow, which it almost looks like they won't, then that's on Manchester United. United have to make that decision. Are they going to knock today? Was it Ed on his phone today talking to Zorc saying, I'll give you £108 million for that player now? What was going on there? He has to. He either has to, or he accepts that this is the way the football club will spiral. So does Sancho make United world beaters tomorrow? Absolutely not. And that's the other side of the coin I've been saying on your show and other places.
Yeah, he doesn't fix the issues, does he?
He doesn't fix it today. Sancho plays today, United lose 6-1. That's what happens today. Doesn't 100%. Matter if Sancho plays. Might lose 6-2, might be slightly better. But it's not about that. It's about the wider demographic of players that they have available for them. And United haven't got a bench. There wasn't a bench there today to go and say, right, let's fix things after 45 minutes. Let's make some amazing changes. Ole, go for it and show us that you've got this Midas touch. I think that's the hardest point for Ole, is that he just doesn't really have the strength in depth. I wrote an article today about the transfer window and about Cavani and about options for Ole. And if you've got your front four and you lose a player, like we saw today, Martial has gone now for 3 games. You need an option to come in, don't you? Not Dan James, not Agallo, not Lingard. You need someone who's got some quality. So Cavani might be that guy if he's ready. I don't believe he will be. I think his fitness levels will be problematic in the next 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. But for the season, he might be the guy. But United have too many mistakes at the highest levels at the football club. They have to shoulder the blame. The blame has to be with Ed Woodward, Matt Judge, and the Glazers first. And don't forget, Ole is their guy in the same way that Mourinho was their guy, that LVG was their guy, and David Moyes was their guy. You can say with David Moyes that part of that was Fergie. Fergie made that call and said, bring that man in. He's the right person for the job. Even a legend like Fergie can get it wrong. But the rest of it, all the recruitment, 10 years of really bad recruitment, I can honestly say that before Bruno Fernandes, United's best signing going all the way back was Robin van Persie. That's how long you've gone from having a good signing that makes a difference, like Robin, to a signing that did make a difference last year in Bruno. Are you going to leave it another 7 years before you make a player who comes in and say, yep, we're going to pay it? And I think that's the bigger problem. And United are going to look at their profits tonight. They'll all be sat there in that boardroom having a crisis meeting. And they'll be sat there going, who can we buy without us looking pathetic? And the problem is, no matter who they buy, they look pathetic already. They've lost that PR show, and it's a gamble at the end of the day. Sancho's not coming tomorrow. He's not coming. It's just the bottom dollar because they've got to a point. They've got to a point of no return. That's why they've gone after Cavani. They wouldn't go after Cavani if they were getting Sancho. But if you can't get Sancho, then I think Cavani fills a gap. But there's lots of gaps, and that is the problem.
Fantastic points, Rob. Last point. Look, I'm just going to give my view on today. Today was unacceptable. I could see this coming. I didn't think we'd lose that badly today, but I could see it coming. We've seen the signs have been there for the past 3 games, I would say. I see, look, whether that's negative or not, I see more of a downward spiral from here. I just don't see how we can get back. Looking at our games that are coming up, we've got Arsenal, we've got Chelsea. We could be in a very, very dire position. We're not going to get Sancho tomorrow, which is fine. You know what? It was never going to happen even a month ago. United just don't have the money to put down for him. But what I will not accept is that when United should have said back in August, right, okay, we can't afford Jadon Sancho. I know you said the COVID discounts, but I think it was obvious that Dortmund were never, ever going to budge on that price. There's a lot of quality out there. You could have got a centre-back. Look where we are, 24 hours to go. But what I will say is that give me a little bit of a positive spin on this. Give the listeners a bit of a positive spin. Where are United going to be come the end of the window? Who do you think could possibly come in? And where will United be in a month's time? And that's difficult to say.
It is difficult to say because there's so many factors that kind of answer that question when you put them all together. Transfer window, let's talk about that first of all. I think United are going to make signings tomorrow. I think that's for sure. I would rather that we saw some crazy left field signing to bring in a centre-back than Sancho. I think Sancho is the right player, but I do believe that is dead for now. We know that Sancho wants to come to Manchester United. God knows why. Yeah, but he wants the number 7 shirt.
Yeah,
he sees that as his path towards superstardom. He doesn't believe he can achieve that at Dortmund, and he believes that Manchester United are one of the biggest clubs in the world, and he wants to play for an English-based team in the Premier League where he can show off what he can do. So, but I don't think that happens tomorrow. Even United could offer the 108 million, and that might be the only way it happens if they do that tomorrow. But I think they'll probably go in with a bid for Sancho, and it might be 10 million short of what Dortmund really want to kind of release the player. The rest of the players that are coming in, I think they're good signings. Do I think they elevate United sufficiently? Maybe only just at the end of the season. Would we look back at it and say United have made huge leaps? No, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that United are going to get anywhere near City and Liverpool. I really don't. I've said that all along. I got asked a few weeks ago, do I think United will challenge the top 2 this year? With them thinking that I would say yes. And I went, no. Why? Why would they?
No chance.
This is not Football Manager. This is not FIFA. This is real life. United in real life are not close enough to those 2 clubs as it stands. If you've got Sancho, then of course you take that next step in terms of bringing in a player that elevates you a little bit more, to that next tiny step upwards. But I don't believe we'll see that. In the next month, it will go one of 2 ways. And I know this sounds like sitting on the fence, but Ole will either fix this and they'll come back from international duty a bit more fitter. And they'll say, do you know what? We believe in this manager as players and we are going to play for him. And we saw it last year. That's what happened at a point where in the Burnley game where we believed Ole was done because they were so bad in that game. We believed that he'd lost the dressing room. And the next game, they played better. The next game, they played even better. 10 games on, they were playing even better. And it was just going on and on. We were like, whoa, suddenly this team that looked dead are no longer dead. They're, Phoenix from the flames. And that could happen with this United team. I do not believe that there's any poison in the dressing room. I don't believe that they're sat there feeling aggrieved by the manager's tactics. I think Luke Shaw said it best, where he said, the manager can give us the tactics and advice, but it's on us. That's what he said after the game. And I think that's absolutely right. They're playing a system that they know back to front. Those guys that know every position back to front. They've got to produce their best. But it will only be a case that you can judge that if you see it. And if they lose the next few games, I think by November, you might see Pochettino as the manager of Manchester United.
Yeah, that's a great last comment. I'm going to read it out, Dr. Shrimp. At least they follow the government guidelines and only let 6 in at a time. Look, Rob, okay, last question. I know I've had you for like nearly 1 hour and 15
right.
minutes, but it's been fantastic, and I'm sure the listeners have really enjoyed it. We've still got quite a few sitting in there, but look, something I do want to debunk, and like I said, what frustrates me the most is when people say, "Oh, well, Ollie's saying this in the press about the owners," and all I do is just go. I've got a few screenshots from when Fergie back then, from when from when Jose back then, from when LVG. But you've got to say this though, that there's got to be a time. You don't go out and have a go at your employers. No one does that. But there's also a way. You don't go around and say, "Oh, we've got some really good people in the club running the club," like you said the other day. You just don't say things like that. And do you not think that's an element of naivety? That's an element of him thinking that I'm lucky to have this job right now. I wouldn't have had this job of this magnitude, of this prestige, if I wasn't who I was. Ex-player. Look, this is how I think, and people can disagree with that, but I still maintain that if he wasn't the manager, he hadn't played at the club, didn't have the reputation, had that credit in the bank, he wouldn't have got offered the job. So for him, he knows that he can't go out and be more forceful about it. But there is a time, and it's annoying the fans, where you got to say, look, a spade is a spade. You can't go out and tell people. You can say, obviously, yes, the owners are looking at working on stuff, but to say things like that, you just lose sections of the fan base. And that's an element for me of naivety, and he's not ready for the job. Maybe in the future he would have been, but it's come too soon.
Yeah, I completely disagree with you. And the reason why I disagree with you, because I think it's about professionalism. In any job, when you work at the highest levels, and I look at that in terms of my job, in terms of the media and people I've worked with, when you work at the highest levels, you have to be a professional through hell and high water. People can throw mud at you on Twitter and go after you and call you names and make it personal. Ultimately, you have to be the statesman in that situation. And I believe that's what Ole's doing. And I do believe, like we've said it here, we've just said that the recruitment and the recruitment team is tons better than it was. So that's all Ole's basically saying. He believes in his recruitment team, his scouting. He believes in that. He didn't say, I think Matt Judge is fantastic. He didn't say, I believe Ed Woodward's fantastic. He said that he thinks the owners are pushing the project towards where he wants it to be. And I think that's right. The problem is they're just not pushing it quick enough. So I think for Ole, I believe that this is not me attacking you or anything like that. I believe that your opinion is done on perception. I think you perceive Ole to be a certain kind of guy. And I believe that Ole thinks he deserves that job. Ole doesn't go home at night, kind of going, oh, do I deserve to be Man United manager? He doesn't. He's a confident guy. He believes in himself. He's done all of the due diligence to be a top coach. He's done the work. He might not have been at a top club before United, but he believes he got that job for the correct reasons. And last year, besides Pep and besides Klopp, he was the best manager in the league. Doesn't matter who you like or who you don't like or perception. Yeah, he was. He goes into this season believing my team are third. I'm the third best manager in this country. I want to be the second, and eventually I want to be the first. So I don't believe Ole has maybe the same kind of identity issues that I think Manchester United fans have at the moment with the football club. Man United fans have this identity now of, hatred towards themselves, self-hatred. I love this club, but this club is letting me down. Why is it like this? Why is it so bad? I don't believe that within the structure that the players believe that. And I don't believe that the managers and the coaches believe that. I don't believe Michael Carrick goes home tonight thinking, oh, we're just a terrible coaching unit. We should just resign. I don't believe Ole believes that either. So I think that there's, again, the answer is somewhere in the middle, in terms of moderation. Ole will know that today's result was absolutely unacceptable. The performance was unacceptable. The players will know it was unacceptable, and everyone goes home miserable. Rio Ferdinand said it best, that when he ever had a bad game where United lost on any stage, that he couldn't sleep at night. He'd go home and he'd sit up all night because his brain would be buzzing about losing that game and what he could have done differently. That's the kind of mentality we need at Man United. Did you see Patrice Evra after the game? Patrice Evra almost resigned live on air. He said, I'm so disgusted by this. I don't want to cover Manchester United. I'm so upset. And I believe that because I have to do it now, that this is bad for me and I don't want to do it. That's how passionate he still is, because that passion was instilled into him in day one when he was at United. And you got to remember his debut against Man City. I don't know if you remember it, if you were old enough.
Yeah, it was shocking.
It was the worst debut, one of the worst debuts you've ever seen in your life. But he learned. And the thing was, every United fan would have sold him on day one. when he came to the football club. They'd have gone, get rid. But he proved himself. So that's really the challenge to this set of players, is that if you want to be part of this club and you want to be part of the history of this football team, you have to prove yourself. If Paul Pogba wants to be Paul Pogba, the Manchester United superstar, then you have to play like it. Now, he's not the only player that needs to do that. There's every one of them today had problems. But
People
I do think
forget,
Ole has
Rob,
to.
Bruno's been poor for a while, hasn't he? Let's be honest.
Well, he wasn't good today, but I would say that he was the guy leading the press. So if you're going to press, then if he doesn't press, and who leads the press? Then if you take him off, then you have to have someone to lead the press. So that didn't happen, did it? So he goes off the pitch and you lose him and then you're in trouble. But he did. He lost the ball quite a bit. But this is, again, a holistic issue. It's a word I use all the time about the team and how it gels. And today the team didn't gel for whatever reason, tactically, emotionally, whether they've got the confidence to kind of take themselves on. I think there were just key moments in the game that killed them today. And they weren't good enough to kind of say, do you know what? I can be the player that United need at this moment. They all just went away and hid. And the rest of the game, they just hid. And you brought two workers in midfield and it didn't mean anything. It was a bad choice by Ole. So he has to be culpable for that. He's the coach at the end of the day. But I don't look at it like that. I never do as a journalist, because I always believe it's always bigger than one game. You can look at one game and say that was a nightmare and the perfect storm, like I said earlier on. But now you have to say to Rod, all right, go and fix it. If you don't fix it, then you're in trouble. And that's what Woodward will be saying. Woodward will be saying, I didn't like that. I don't want to see that again. It's like if you have a bad day at the office, your boss pulls you to one side and says, what was that all about? You weren't good enough today. And that's what will happen with United. And that's what will happen with Ole. And eventually, if he doesn't sort it out very, very quickly, I don't think he's got long. 5 games, 6 games.
Yeah,
I think he'll be sacked. But it will also be about the available Pochettino. Like, we don't know if Pochettino's done a deal with another team and is ready to go to another club. If you don't give the job to Pochettino, because we're kind of presuming that's what happens, pick a manager. Who takes the job? Tell me, who do you think should have the job if there's no Pochettino?
Well, right now, who's available?
Who do you take? Who do you take tomorrow?
There is Pochettino, nobody really. But that's the choice that
there we go.
The club wanted. But that's the point.
It is, but because the club are so inept, at the top level, they're left with one man. Pochettino's laughing now. Isn't he? If he come knocking on Pochettino's door, he can say whatever he wants in terms of wages. He can say, "Yep, I'll come and fix your football club, but you pay me. Yeah, you give me a 7-year contract
as well.
You give me a 7-year contract, and I want £500 million in transfer funds. I want everything. Give me the sun and the moon and the stars." And he can say that now because he's in a great position to barter. But if he's decided to go and manage, I don't know, a top team in Italy or Spain or even another Premier League club somewhere, what do you say then? Who do you go and get? There's no one on the market. There really isn't. There isn't coaches lining up. We always go, you can just go and get someone. Who do you get? And that's where I have a problem with it. And I say to myself, do you just stick with the manager for a little bit longer until it's untenable and then you start the project again? Or do you go and get Pochettino, hope that gives you a boost, but then you've got to invest in that guy in the way that you haven't invested in other managers? I think it's really, really difficult. Manchester United are in this hole because they are the architects of their own doom at the end of the day. Do I think Ole can do it? I do. I do really do believe that, because we saw last year when the club looked on its knees and he looked finished, he fixed it somehow. However he did it with the same players, one signing did it for him with Bruno, and he fixed it. And he got United to a position where not one of us would have bet on that, would we? Third, that was dreamland when United were like 13th, 14th, 15th. He's got to do it again, but he can't keep repeating the trick because eventually you just run out of options.
Also, I completely agree with the final point, but I think also you got to look at the context, right? You've got to look at what's going on around the league. Everton look a different prospect. Yeah. And why do Everton look like a prospect? Okay, they bought 3 fantastic players. The team's not much different than what it was, but they've got a top bracket manager. And this is my point. Like, while we are moving forward with that project, and I agree with you shouldn't be pulling the plug halfway through, but at the end of the day, bringing someone in better can take you to that next level. Because I'm saying this now, apart from that defense, I think that starting 11 is a strong starting 11. That starting 11 should not have been beaten the way it was today. It should not have played the way it did against Brighton. It should not have been beaten the way it was against Palace. And this is a point that people are hiding behind, the idea that oh, well, you know what? Oli needs to be backed. He's got a very, very expensive first 11 out there. And a lot of those players are his. Bruno is his. Van der Beek's his. Maguire is his centre-back that he wanted, £80 million. He asked for Wan-Bissaka, £50 million. Again, big outlays on players. He's going to get Telles. He's going to get Cavani. The excuses cannot carry on, can they, Rob? Though I mean, that's
why, managers have to live and die by the results at the end of the day. You know, I believe Mourinho had players as well. It's the same thing, but to kind of answer your point there, you're saying about go out and get someone better, because that's always the all-encompassing answer in football, isn't it? I don't like Luke Shaw, go and get someone better. I don't like Ole, go and get someone better. You know, ultimately, when you kind of look at it and you kind of really kind of grind it down, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, they were all an improvement on each manager. Two managers are Hall of Fame managers. Yeah, two guys who will be remembered forever, whatever they did at Man United. We've had Hall of Fame managers. There's nothing to say that Ancelotti would have fixed it. But Ancelotti at Everton has got a load of rich backers with him, and he's gone out and bought wisely. And that Everton team, I think, if you line it up against the Man United team, I think that Everton team is better. I think I do. At this moment of time, I look at it and I say the pieces of the jigsaw fit much better when you look at everything from back to front than you do when you look at Man United. You know, when you look at Man United, it feels disjointed at times. You know, especially the way that they play. So part of that's a manager. You know, you can boil it back down to tactics and look at those things, but it's more about your recruitment, your planning and executing, how you give the manager the freedom to kind of be the manager he wants to be. And that's what Everton are doing with Ancelotti. There's nothing to say United would have done that with Ancelotti. We've just had two of the greatest managers of all time fail at Man United for the exact reasons that we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
So why do we think it's any different? Why do we think it's different? Because it's Ole. The difference was that when they gave Ole the job, they went for a philosophy, a guy who would, by hella high water, say, I want Manchester United to play like Manchester United and to get back to the top, being the sort of football club that we all love and that we all watched as kids growing up with the trophies and whatnot. Now, you have bad results. You can lose 6-1. It's awful. Everyone feels wounded. But it's about the next game now and the next game and the next game. And eventually, you run out of time. I think Mourinho did. It's exactly how I viewed it. You know, he didn't get Maguire. Does Maguire save his job that year? Not necessarily. Not for me. Now, we're looking at Maguire now and we're seeing that maybe he's not the player that Manchester United scouting network thought he was. But this is a Harry Maguire that was one of the best defenders at the World Cup in 2018. You know, highly lauded, you know, considered one of the best ball carrying centre-backs in England. And it doesn't work because the rest of it doesn't work. You know, so part of that's him. Part of that is his partner. Part of that is strategy. United now might have to go out and just buy a centre-back. You know, they might have to go and knock on Napoli's door and say, that lad you've got, can we have him? And we'll pay whatever. Now, that's not good football strategy, whatever way you look at it. And they might get Koulibaly or someone like that, or an equivalent. They might go and get Skriniar or someone like that from Inter. That's not happening either. That's just me saying that. And does that fix it? No, because you've reacted too late to everything. And I think that's where United stand. And today was the perfect storm because it was kind of, you looked at it with the way United have been in the transfer market, and it was all ready to get a good hiding. You know, you play Tottenham, you get a good hiding. You didn't get Sancho, you didn't get your top targets, you didn't get Upamecano, you didn't get anyone you wanted. And now you're bringing in Cavani. And Cavani's probably sat there tonight going,
yeah, this is something I did want to say.
Is it what am I joining here? Champions League club or a team that's going to end up 10th next year? Does he back out? There's that probably that could happen. He might go, I'm off to the MLS. I'll earn a little bit less money, but I don't want this stress. Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of that at Manchester United in terms of targets, is that a lot of guys see it as a challenge. I know that Jadon Sancho wants to come to Man United because he believes that he can be the player that takes United back to the top. And he believes he can be the kind of next Wayne Rooney at United, a kind of boy wonder, the kid who kind of... That's the
question, Rob, isn't it? You look at... Let's have a look at... I'm just an example. Ancelotti with James. James went to there not because of Everton, not because of look at what they've been doing the past 10 years. They've been doing since Moyes left. They haven't touched Champions League at all, have they? Not even anywhere close to that.
No.
He went there purely because of Ancelotti. Alan paid for Ancelotti at Napoli. He went there. if you're not, I'm just saying, if United had, I mean, we saw with Mourinho. Mourinho managed to get Pogba, Zlatan. Obviously Mkhitaryan was a top player in Germany when he came. But the point is that what can United really offer? Because let's just look at the situation we're currently in. Yes, we came third. It's funny because at the beginning of the summer, the positivity was through the roof. United were like, right, we can really push on to get towards City and Liverpool. It's funny how 2 months later we're in the situation. But what can United have to offer genuinely? You can't say that the manager is a pull. You can't say that necessarily we look like a team that's going to be, I know it's 3 or 4 games, but look like we're going to be on the up. It's just money, really, isn't it? Throwing money at the problem. And that's what United have been doing. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what United can offer over. If City came in for Telles, because Mendy had a disaster class yesterday, Telles would choose City over United, purely because the manager, the project, where they'll be at the end of the season compared to us. It's not me being negative. It's just me being objective that if I was Cavani and I looked at what I saw today, I would have reservations.
Yeah, but I don't believe that is objective. Sorry, mate. At the end of the day, I think when you look at it, that again is perception. So when you look at it, like you just say now, I don't believe that the manager is a pull. I can tell you absolutely straight up that one of the reasons Jadon Sancho wants to come to Man United is because of his conversations with Solskjaer. You know, Solskjaer has actually had direct contact with the player. It's one of the reasons why he's committed to coming to United if United can pay the money. You know, so the manager is always a consideration for players, but I think when you talk to players, it's not always the biggest consideration. So if you're going to play for Pep, that's a pull. If you're going to play for Klopp, that's a pull. If you're going to play for someone like Ancelotti, that's a pull. But then there's a load of other managers who kind of doing the job, and you kind of say to yourself, well, you know, like Conte has a certain kind of pull at Inter, but it's not all encompassing, you know. So there's a little bit of it in terms of the factoring. Ultimately, when players go to football clubs, it's because they want to win and because it's a business transaction that suits them. Yeah. So Manchester United have got the money to go and pay people wages that other clubs cannot. Simple as that. There's never really a problem with wages in terms of whatever kind of deals that they execute. If anyone look at the kind of last 5 years of signings, Manchester United have paid ridiculous wages to players who have kind of laughed their socks off when they've turned up. Yeah. You know, we all know what Alexis Sanchez got. But you again kind of have to break it down and say, what have Manchester United got? They have got a history that when you talk to people outside of England, still shines like a beacon. You know, when you talk to a guy in South America who's playing football and coming through the ranks at one of the clubs in Brazil or Argentina or Uruguay, quite often there's only one team they really know, and that's United, because that's what they've grown up with. So United still have that pull that other clubs don't. Cavani's coming tomorrow to United, we assume. And one of the reasons is because it is Manchester United. I don't think Cavani turns up at Newcastle. So, you know, and he might get the money he wants elsewhere. And I think he could have got the money at the MLS, absolutely, as a premium player there in America. But this is a challenge for him. And what we're hearing is that he's up for that. He wants to be at a club that's challenging, big name. And for him as Uruguayan, he feels that there's a prestige of playing for Manchester United. Lots of South Americans think that. Go and talk to Seba Veron and why he went to United at that point. He knew he weren't getting in the team at the point, but he was going because his dad told him stories about Manchester United when he was a boy. And that stuck with him. And that's why he came to United. Didn't work for him. I love Veron, but it didn't work. What a player. One of the great players of his time in terms of Argentinian football. Yeah. But those signings don't always work. United have still got pull. They have still got traction. But once you start doing one bad deal and 2 bad deals and 10 bad deals, you get a little bit of a reputation. And I think that's where United sit at the moment, that, you know, Dortmund might have been more willing to do a deal if United hadn't kind of had this hands-off approach that they have had. Yeah. I know that the clubs have spoken. That's been confirmed. But United have played this COVID game where they've waited late. It's a poker game. You know, you're sat there with your cards on the table and you're saying, you know, twist, 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 twist. And you're not actually playing the game. You're just kind of participating until you get what you want out of it. And United are not going to get what they want. This is the problem. So that sits at the door of the board. Ed Woodward, I felt that watching his body language. You know, we talked a lot about body language on the telly today. They were kind of like, look at the players' body language.
You see his eyes.
You saw him there. He was like this.
Yeah, this. Yeah,
and he was like there going, I know what's coming now. I know it. And it's not that he doesn't know that the team isn't good enough or that the players. He has all of those reports put on his desk, and he's a United fan. He has been his whole life. He feels it as a Manchester United supporter. But as the guy who is the person that kind of controls the purse strings with the Glazers, he has to be the one that executes deals, and that is on his shoulders. He could sack the manager tomorrow, and if the results are bad, no one can say a thing about it. I don't believe, I've said this to you before, I don't believe in Ole in or Ole out. I don't believe it. It's just about whether that manager in a soulless capacity deserves to be sacked in that moment of time. Sometimes we see managers sacked for the correct reason. Sometimes we see them sacked for the wrong reason. But it's up to the board to make that call. I think that if you go and get rid of Ole tomorrow, you better damn sure replace him with Pochettino. If you don't get Pochettino, don't be going half-assed.
Don't sack him.
Don't be going and getting Allegri just to shut people up and say, oh, well, he won a few Serie A's. Don't be going out there and saying, Bielsa. Someone said Bielsa the other day, go and get Bielsa because of what he's done at Leeds. No, thank you. I don't want any of that. You either stick to your philosophy that you're going to have someone from within the club who knows the club and is going to fix it in a more low-key way like Ole is, or you go big time and you go and get your top target. Now, you can laugh at it, in terms of strategy, but United are so bad at doing this bit.
I agree with that. I agree with that point. I just want to read out this comment around that. Should Liverpool sack Klopp because they're losing 6-2 apparently to Villa? Rob, by the way,
no, they're not.
Big defending champions. No, but
that's
they are. True. Yeah, the comments are popping up. Yeah, they are.
That's not true. I don't believe that.
Yeah, it is. It is true. They're losing 6-2 to Villa. I mean, let me have a look.
Can I just say something? Can I just say something while you're looking at that? Yeah,
6-2. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to go crazy about this, but last week Leicester beat Man City 5-2 or 5-1. Was it 5-1?
5-2. Yeah,
5-2. And today they got hammered by West Ham, who are absolutely a bag of nails. Yeah, it doesn't mean Leicester are the worst team on earth, and Manchester United losing today 6-1 doesn't mean Man United are the worst team on earth. And you've got to, as a journalist, this is how I think. I always think to myself, football is the funniest game on the planet. We're just seeing Aston Villa winning 6-2, and I know nothing about that result yet. So obviously,
I'm just seeing Grealish. He's on my bench for fantasy football, but Grealish has just scored.
But what would 6-2 would have been? I reckon about 400-500 to 1. Yeah, as a nothing bet, a bet that you would never take. If Villa are winning 6-2, and that's true, and that comment there, I'm reading a comment and still can't believe it. Yeah. Like that said, there should Liverpool sack Klopp? Now I know that's tongue in cheek. That's tongue in cheek. That's tongue in cheek, and Klopp is in a different place. But say Klopp loses 6-2, he loses the next game 4-1, he loses 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, wins 3-0, loses 2-0, loses 1-0, draws 3-all. Should he be sacked? And you know what? There's a chance that he could be. Doesn't matter what you've done before. Boards get spooked by results. That's how it works. They don't know about football, so they get spooked. Now, Liverpool don't want to sack Klopp for one result, but if there's a decline, and people were saying last year, should Pep be sacked because City lost 9 games in the league? Well, no, because he's still Pep Guardiola. He's still one of the greatest managers of all time. It doesn't matter however you want to spin it with results. That result, of course, is shocking for Liverpool, 6-2. And it shows maybe where they are in their fitness or where they are in their motivation. They just bought Thiago. Yeah, and people were like, well, that's it. Game over because they bought Thiago. I don't know if Thiago's played today, but clearly something. Yeah, he's got COVID, so he's not playing. So, but they're losing 6-2. So results are funny, and I implore United fans for calm in that situation. I don't expect people to go to be like some huge Solskjaer advocate because I'm not either. I just want to see it play out and I want to see what happens. And the only way I would accept for Ole to leave Manchester United in the next month or two, and it might even be a little bit longer. We might talk December or even January if it's not working. Then that better be for Pochettino. He's the only other guy that I would say, he's 100% the guy that I believe can do it. So many United fans tell me he can't. People say he hasn't won anything. People say, why do you like him? And I say I like him, not because just what he did at Tottenham, but I closely watched what he did at Southampton for my work. And I really liked how he picked apart their problems and solved them in terms of being a smart manager and not losing the dressing room, not upsetting people, but actually inflating them, making them better. He made Luke Shaw a great young player, and he made those people that were working for him great. And he took that Tottenham team without one signing that summer, without one signing, the first time ever a Premier League club has not made a signing in the summer. He took them to a Champions League final and could have beaten Liverpool. And if he'd beaten Liverpool, what do we do? What do we say then? Is Poch a legend or a genius? Again, it's somewhere in the middle, isn't it, mate? It's kind of like, I think he's good enough to do the job. If Ole goes, that's the guy I want in at the football club, because I think he's the guy that can take the youngsters. He'll believe in them. They'll believe in him. And whoever he brings in, I think, will be salient, sensible signings that will take United onwards. Ole's signings have been good. I like them. I like what he's done. I didn't like what Jose did. I didn't like what Van Gaal did. I thought all their signings, hundreds of millions of pounds on players, wasted, horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. And United fans tonight, we all deserve to be absolutely upset and furious. And that's what football is. When it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it is horrible. But ultimately, we've got to suck it up. There's an international break coming now. I think it's probably well timed for Ole. I think he needs to go back to the drawing board. And he will demand more from this team. There's no doubt in my mind, from what I know personally, how he manages, that he will be saying to those players, you let me down, you let yourself down, but you do not let those United fans down again, because I will 100% get rid of you out of this football club. And, there's obviously a comment there saying, I'd agree, it has to be Poch. If you sack Ole, it has to be. I don't know anyone else. Yeah. I think I've got decent football knowledge in terms of my job. We have to study this stuff and look at records. Yeah, we have to look at coaching strategies. We have to look at what they do. We have to talk to players and say, right, what do you think when you've worked under this manager? I know what people have told me. The players that have worked for Pochettino, I've heard what they say. Who do you bring in if you get rid of Ole? For me, it's just one man. I think the other guy, if you get Nagelsmann, another young guy. But do you know what? If Nagelsmann comes to United and failed, people will go, how the hell did you get this young bloke from Germany? Why did you do that? What was it about him that made you? Now, we know he's a great young talent and he's done an amazing job in the Bundesliga, absolutely phenomenal talent. And he would be on the list. There's no doubt about it. If there was a list for these things, he would be on it. But for me, it's Pochettino number one, Nagelsmann maybe number two, and there's a big jump and a big gulf between 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But United don't always get number one, do they? And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, but that's a fantastic way to end, Rob. And what I will add to that, I completely agree. I'm not saying Ole, I want Ole to get sacked, but, if Poch is available like he is, then I would be okay with it. But at the end of the day, if it's anyone else but Pochettino, then I think that's just not a crazy idea, because look at what we're building. But Rob,
and it can't be on one. It can't be on one game. Like, can't be on one game. Yeah. You can't sack a player manager on one game. But 5 games, 10 games, you certainly can look at your options. And if Pochettino is available, then you pull that trigger. And he is available, as far as I know. He does still want the Man United job, as far as I know. I still know that he was the number one choice of Ed Woodward when Jose Mourinho was sacked. So when you put all those things together, it adds up.
Rob, it's 7-2 apparently. That's what the comment says.
No.
It hasn't come up on my phone yet. Oh, it has. Jack Grealish. I've got him on my bench, Rob. I captained Salah.
What's going on there? Like, what's going on? Like, I know we're going to end this soon, and we'll obviously go our own ways and have a look. But what does that that takes all the focus off this United result, doesn't it? You take the 6-1 and it was a disaster, and Patrice Evra's got his hand over his mouth like it looks like he's going to cry, and even Souness looks embarrassed to sit there going, "Do I destroy Manchester United now with my punditry?" Yeah. What do you say about Liverpool losing 7-2? I don't know what to say to that, because we've not seen the game, but it proves that football is wild. And the start of the season, we've seen some absolute wild results. Craziest. And we have to look at this from the COVID angle. And that is that there are teams who are they're not even 1% or 2% lower. Like, if you're 99% fit, you generally lose because you're not at 100. But if you're 90% fit, you get these wild results. 7-2 against Aston Villa, home or away, they could play that game on the moon. And Liverpool expect to win it, with zero gravity. They expect to win it. But losing 7-2, is this the first time a champion, Premier League champion, has lost 7-2?
Me that.
He said to me. So,
yeah. First time ever a champion's ever lost by 7.
So this is a hugely embarrassing result for Liverpool. Incredible that Aston Villa, who are relegation fodder and are looking at maybe coming 17th this year and surviving one more year. I said Ross Barkley, he was my fantasy league tip. I was like, this boy is going to do well at Villa because he's going to be playing as a number 10. He's going to be on the edge of the box. That's what he's going to be doing. He hadn't done that at Chelsea. He wants to be the Everton Ross Barkley. But when you look at that result, that completely nullifies the craziness about the United result, because even if this was terrible, we can say that United were down to 10 men, that things conspired badly, and that United centre-backs are absolutely bobbins, that they're not good enough, and that United should have done the business to maybe rectified that, weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and they didn't do that. Are we saying now Liverpool are not good enough? No,
not at all.
For my fantasy league team, I hope Salah's got me some goals of those 2 goals. I don't know if he did.
Yeah, he scored 2. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to celebrate that because that's a disgusting thing to do. But ultimately, this is how weird football is at the moment, and you've got to find a way to kind of balance the books emotionally. And for me, with it being the international break, all of these managers, Klopp included now, are going to be saying, "Whoa, how do I fix this?" in not just the short term, but the long term. And I think with Ole, he knows that he's got to do something. He'll be going crazy at his board tonight, Ole. He'll be saying, where are my signings? And banging his fist on the table. He'll be saying, I want these players. I believe he should be professional, in front of a camera. I think he should say, the board back me and I back the board, because that's professional. I don't like the way Mourinho does it, where he's snide. And he kind of goes, I said I want this player, I didn't get him, and I want this. I don't want that. That's not professional at the end of the day. I don't really care about how people present themselves in the press. As someone who works in the press, I see their faces, and when the camera goes off and they've been smiling and then they go and walk off angry, that's when you see their true emotions. You don't see it when you see it on Sky Sports. So for Ole, fingers crossed for him that he works it out. Yeah. But if it doesn't work out, go and get Pochettino. He's the guy I think that can take the club forward.
That is a great way to end, Rob. Honestly, I feel a little bit better after seeing that result. But look, this is a thing. This is what I don't like to say.
I'm breathless. I'm breathless.
It's mental. I'm surprised you were, because obviously your camera's up here. So I kept on putting the comments up, and I was trying to be like, Rob, look, mate. People kept saying 5-1, and then all these, and you just completely missed it. I was like, Rob, mate, you got to have a look. But guys, look, what I will say to that, something, it makes me feel better. But that also, we shouldn't celebrate this because we've got a lot of our own problems and we need to fix them. And Jonathan, I'm going to put your comment up because you've been having a lovely sort of ding dong with me in the comments, which is great. Thank you for your support as always, mate. Even if you have a different opinion to me, I love it that you get involved and you give your opinion. But he says Ollie regularly lies to the press. Something I will say is they don't.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Can I answer that? Every manager lies to the press. Every manager lies to the press. Yeah. There is not one manager that is 100% honest with us guys in the press. And we know that. We can only report what we're told, either it's off camera or on camera. Ole doesn't lie. I believe he's professional. I believe he stands there and goes, do you know what? I'm not here to create drama. All I can do is affect my team on the training pitch. And when I'm sat there motivating them, when we're looking at tactics and we're looking at our opponents, what's Ole supposed to do? Is Ole supposed to come out on October the 6th and go, well, I didn't get Jadon Sancho, so, I hate Man United. It's just awful, isn't it? Yeah. No, that's for the fans. That's for the fans to do. He's going to say, no, I'm happy with my guys. I'm going to develop them. That's what he should do. So I get what your commenter said there. Was it Jonathan, was it, who said it?
Yeah, Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment, but ultimately, I just think that managers are there to be professional first and foremost, and they should say their grievances directly to the people on the board, to their faces, not through a newspaper column, not through the lens of a camera.
I agree with that.
They say it straight, and I know that Ole does. The feedback is that he's very blunt, very frank. He tells them what he wants, and if he doesn't get it, that's really on the board.
Yeah, and we know what the issues are with the board. I agree with that. Something I do say is that what frustrates me is not so much him. I know exactly what he's saying. You don't take everything they say on face value, because how many times have players said that, have managers said this? Fergie used to say it. But it's about not going too fast. When he said the club's run by you've cleared that up for me today. So, I'm learning something. Obviously, I'm a fan. You're in the media. You know this a lot better than me, and that's why we get you on the podcast. He says, "Oh, the club's run by good people." You said recruitment. When I read that as a fan, obviously being annoyed at what's going on, thinking, "Why are you saying this about the ownership?" And that's the thing. I think something you said on a lot of podcasts with me is, as fans, we're all emotionally charged. I mean, you're a fan as well, but sometimes you got to take a step back. And look, today was shocking. That's why I call Rob the therapist Blanchette, because obviously every time I speak to you, I feel a lot better. But what I will say from my point of view, I mean, I came into this thinking, right, Ollie needs to go tonight. I'm going to sort of perch that. And that's something that I do. If I'm wrong, then I'll say I'm wrong. I'll perch that, but I have to see improvements. There has to be improvements. Whoever comes in, doesn't matter. Even with this current squad, it's better than this.
And
so
no manager can live on legend. Yeah, we can look at Fergie now and say we loved him and he did this, he did that. I am old enough to remember being at Old Trafford as a child and hearing fans saying Fergie out. I am old enough. I do remember it. And can you imagine if those fans had got what they wanted in that moment?
Yeah.
If we don't beat Nottingham Forest 1-0 at the City Ground in the FA Cup in 1990, when Mark Robbins scored a goal. I remember it like it was yesterday. Yeah, I was a child, but I remember it. Then Fergie gets sacked. And the history that we had in the last 25 years doesn't happen. It's gone.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to bite your lip and say, right, let's just eke it out a little bit more. Let's buy the right players. Let's give this manager the support he needs. Fergie was so close to getting sacked, and people want to have a whole list of revisionism and say that it didn't happen. It absolutely happened. And I'm not trying to compare Ole to Fergie.
Yeah, that's something people will jump on.
But the situation is the same. And the situation is that bad results doesn't necessarily mean you have a bad manager, but good results sometimes will come off the back of just investing in either a manager or a coach or a team over a period of time. And we saw that last year, and we should remember that. None of us believed that Man United team could go on and break in the top four. And I remember someone said to me, do you think United could catch Chelsea at one stage? And I think the gap was, what was it, 11 points? I can't remember now. 12 points.
11 to 14 points. Yeah.
And I think it was 11 to Chelsea and 14 points to Leicester. And I said, I think United can catch Leicester in 14 points. I think they can do that because I think Leicester will crumble, and I think Leicester will collapse, not because they're a bad team, just because they haven't got the experience. And what did United go and do? They jumped both of them. So we've seen the proof that Ole can get this team to perform, but this is also another kind of challenge for him now. And he's passed the challenges that he had before, and he has to look into himself. And I'm sure he'll be talking to Fergie and talking to people at the club that he knows and his staff. And I think the staff have done a good job in the last 2 years since Mourinho left. And I feel that they've got United to a certain level. Now can they get them to the next level? Can they recover from this? I don't know. I really don't. I really don't. But we can only wait and see. And if we get to a point where we decide that that's that, Pochettino wants a job and United have got him and they're ready to go and they're happy and it's the right thing to do, then that will be the right thing at that point in time. But it's not tonight. People will be calling for Ole out, and it ain't tonight. This is not the day to call to sack your manager just because one result was absolutely shocking. And it was bad. We know how bad it was. But reactionary decisions very rarely are good decisions. You have to be proactive. You have to plan for the future. It might be the case that Mr. Woodward rang Pochettino today and said,
"Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Rob.
What's your availability like? Would you be ready?" Because that's what they did with Mourinho and Van Gaal. It's exactly that. They didn't sack Van Gaal until the last moment, but Mourinho was approached about the job 4 months in advance. So that's, I think, is how Ed Woodward operates, and it wouldn't surprise me if Pochettino is the next manager of Manchester United.
Yeah, fantastic points. The last thing I will say on this before we end, because we nearly done 2 hours, but it doesn't feel like that. I think it's been Rob. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully you'll come back on Wednesday. We'll talk about the transfers, obviously transfer window ending. But last point I'll make is actually, if United did sack Ole, let's say in the next couple of months, bringing Pochettino in would actually be the first time they were showing some sort of continuity in a plan. But I actually think you look at this squad, and you can add this, but looking at this squad, if you brought Pochettino or someone like that or Nagelsmann after, they they would really enjoy the squad. There's youth in it. There's exuberance. There's energy. There's a lack of pace in certain areas. I think we need a defensive midfielder. But on the whole, you wouldn't be going from a Mourinho, from a Van Gaal to a Mourinho. It wouldn't be two completely different styles. What you would probably have with Poch is a more of a defined style of play.
Maybe.
Remember as well with
Pochettino. I don't think Pochettino has a deep philosophy. When you saw him at Tottenham, he very often changed his formation to whoever he was playing. So you won't see him being Pep, and you wouldn't see him being Klopp in terms of that. What I do think is that when you break that down, sorry to kind of butt in on what you were saying to end the show, I think you need to look at individuals and say, does that player survive? Now, if you brought in Pochettino, you would be going straight back into transition. Yeah, you would not. It wouldn't be just pick the team up, win a few games, and everything carries on as normal. Pochettino would be looking at people and saying who stays and who goes, and how do I make this team better? I think if that was the case, and Poch comes in, and then you've got a window coming up, I think Henderson probably gets the gloves now. I think if you concede 6, you deserve to be benched. It wasn't all De Gea's fault, and I'm a big fan of De Gea, and I think that he's in trouble. I think. Do
you think that, would you have looked at that result today and thought, see, I looked at that completely differently. When I saw that result today, not one of them, maybe the second one, I think Son's one, but I wouldn't have looked at De Gea and thought, right, your place under threat. I think he's actually started the season well. I'd looked at the defense and been like, you guys.
Yeah, but I think there's a collective.
Mengi should be coming in or someone like that.
Yeah, there's a collective responsibility, and when you're a goalkeeper, you have to have control of certain elements that are not just about shot stopping. So we all know that David De Gea can stop shots. We know all of this, but you have to look at the commanding of how he goes about his business. Now, I think the Son goal where he got dinked was a bad decision. He came out. I think the second Son goal was a nightmare. You should never get done on the near post through your legs. That's a disaster. I think the first goal where obviously Harry Maguire and his band of merry men decided to play head tennis in the middle of the penalty area, trying to head it back to De Gea. I think De Gea might have reacted better there, coming forward for the ball, but it was on his heels.
That's the worst goal I've ever seen us concede.
The worst goal I've ever seen Manchester United concede in 20, 30 years. Honestly, worst goal I've ever seen. Yeah. Just furious at that. But I think when you look at that, those 3 things that I've mentioned, I think when you've got a goalkeeper like Dean Henderson, who's had a couple of chances and done well, you say, right, David, you sit on the bench and I bring in Dino. And I think that's the thing. If you bring in Pochettino, that's how he would look at it. Transition would be easier for a new manager. But I also think Bailly has talked his way out of ever being a starter today in one game. But I think he did that last year when he made mistakes. I think Lindelof is still a problem. I think Maguire is a problem. So United need to solve that. Luke Shaw isn't consistent enough on the front foot. And I think Wan-Bissaka's got problems at the moment. I still think he's a young lad. So you could, in theory, change the whole back 5. You could, if a new manager comes in, he might look at the whole back 5 and say, I don't like any of them. So we're going to have to go and spend 300 million to replace these players. And if Pochettino comes to the club and that's a proviso, he says, I'll come to the club, but you give me a new back 4 and a new goalkeeper, then that's tough for Ed Woodward. He's then going to kind of stump up that money to get that manager. But then you could look at Pogba in terms of his performances. Fred came on today, was busy, absolutely shocking in terms of his technical qualities, giving the ball away. There was so much wrong in terms of the whole team. But it was, if I'm a new manager, do I want to change everything or do I want to change half of it? And I still think that half of that team is that threat. I really do, even though they're good. I think half of them are good. Greenwood's fine. I think Martial's fine. I think Rashford is fine. They need to kind of up their levels, but I don't think there's a problem with them as players. But there's a lot wrong still. And I think that's tough for any new manager. And tough for Ole, because what's Ole supposed to say? It would just be excuses, wouldn't it? My players are slow, and it's like, I don't know. I think you just have to wait and see now with Ole and there's you can make excuses, but it's tough for every United fan. I sympathise with every United fan that's angry tonight. I'm with you. I feel it. I feel everything you feel in terms of the disappointment.
It's tough, isn't it, Rob? I mean,
I wrote it's a sad day for Manchester United. That's how I tweeted that. And I meant that because it's a sad day that you have to go through these things. But do you know what? As we saw with Liverpool today, every club goes through bad, dark days. Sometimes they last longer than others. It's up to Ole now to prove himself. Doesn't matter if you're
Yeah.
Ole in or Ole out. You just got to wait and see.
Agreed. And what I will say is this has probably been the darkest day for me. Well, I'm 25 years old, so I was still a young fan. All I've known is Fergie. Probably the hardest defeat I've ever had to digest. I mean, I switched off the TV and put it back on. But what I will say is that we just got to see what happens, haven't we, Rob? We see what Liverpool saw with
fight the good fight. That's what I always say as a fan. Sometimes you just got to suck it up and just go, that was bad. Next game, let's get on with it.
Absolutely. And Rob, thank you very much for coming on today. I know it was last minute, but it's been absolutely brilliant. We've had some excellent comments from listeners. Thank you very much for all your comments. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Rob should be back on Wednesday, so we'll pre-record that at midday. That will be released on Thursday. So Rob, thank you very much again for coming on, and I hope you have a nice evening.
Yeah, you too. And good luck to Ole, good luck to the team, and hopefully they can prove that they're worthy of our shirt, because if they don't, they'll be out of the football club.
Absolutely. And to all the listeners, thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy this Liverpool defeat, because that doesn't happen very often. And we will see you next time.